Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Buckeye Huddle Postgame Live show. I am Mark Givler. I got Devin Radcliffe here with me in a second. There he is. Ohio State 20, Penn State 12. Interesting game. Kind of what I expected. I picked 20-17 before the game. We're going to kind of get into our breakdowns here. Want to do a quick shout out to our sponsor, WagerWire, before we get rolling here on the observations. But glad to have everybody with us. Again, WagerWire is now sponsoring our instant reaction show. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a better bettor. So it allows you to sync all of your sports books in one app, track all your bets in one place. So you can see your current action, you can see your betting history, you can see your stats. You can also sign up for sports books and collect their bonus offers. They're also a great follow on Twitter. So if you want to go on Twitter/X @WagerWire, and you can get their app in the Play Store or in the App Store if you're on Apple. Use promo code Buckeye Huddle to do this. It'll help us out. It'll help them out to know that their sponsorship here is driving them some traffic. So we appreciate them for doing that. It's a great app. Again, they want you to win money. That's the best thing about it. They're not a sports book that's taking your money. They're an app that helps you track everything. So they're actually incentivized for you guys to win, unlike the sports books who are incentivized for you to lose. So that's kind of why I like having them as a partner here. But let's dive into the game, Devin. Like I said, I picked 20-17. So it's hard for me to sit here and get too, preachy about the offense or, start being too critical of things when this is kind of the exact game I expected. I said in kind of the pregame write-up, this is going to be Notre Dame 2.0, except they've got home field this time. How did you feel this game went from what you maybe expected coming in? Did you think it may be a little higher scoring? And just kind of your initial takes and reactions from a huge win for the Buckeyes?
Well, first, obviously, it was a huge win. You heard this week some of the commentary experts saying if Ohio State wins this ball game, they got the best resume in the country, and they obviously went out won the ball game. So you could start with that. And, they did a good job leading up to the game of showing, the past 10 years or so, Ohio State's won whatever it's been. Penn State hasn't had a win going back to 2016. But here lately, it really seems like, I think even going back to that 2016 game, you had a double overtime game in 14 even. The games have all been pretty tight to the best of my knowledge off the top of my head. You had Bosa's walk-off, sack. In 14, you had to come from behind. Dwayne Haskins with, going 95 yards or whatever it was to win the ball game. I'm trying to think what else happened here in recent years.
JT morphing into Joe Montana for about 10 minutes there.
Yeah. Obviously, JT Barrett went 37-37 in the fourth quarter for 792 yards and 6 touchdowns or whatever it was back at 16. So I definitely am like you. I expected this to be a really tight, contested ball game. And, you got to get a lot of credit. And obviously we'll talk about this more, but, it almost felt like an old school 2000. I'm not going to put all the way out there for you all those of you that are my age, but it was one of those games you're like, hey, Jim Tressel was, sitting back sipping a Diet Coke watching this ball game because this was his cup of tea.
Yeah, I think Jim Tressel would have enjoyed this one. Just the way this thing played out with some of the key punts from Mirko and just, kicking some field goals when they were there. Maybe not all the field goals that they should have kicked, but we'll get into that here in a minute. Devin, let's load up Devin's 3 and out. Here's Devin's 3 thoughts, 3 big takeaways from the game.
I am about ready to start saying that this defense can start calling himself the Silver Bullets again. And there's been a lot made, and rightfully so, about Jim Knowles becoming a bend but don't break. Speaking of Coach Tressel. But the reason you could play that is these guys fly around to the football. You don't see a lot of plays break because of their pursuit and gang tackling. It's kind of cliche stuff, but it's cliche because it's true. Those boys out there are getting after the ball. Think about plays you think are about to break, and just the pursuit, the tackling, it has really been phenomenal. Game like this today, they really definitely earned the Silver Bullet nickname today. So that'd be my first big takeaway. And you saw the game went on. Coach Day was, starting to be more than happy with, hey, you know what? That's punt and play defense. and not put them in bad spots if we can help ourselves. So definitely getting more and more optimistic about how good this defense can become.
Yeah, and defensive line, well, short yardage. What's your short yardage point here?
The 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, when Ryan Day decided to go for it, that nearly broke my spirits. And I'm sure I'm not the only one because, it was one we've talked about before on the show, and it's been talked a lot about social media and other places. It's 3rd and 1. You're going, oh, okay, Day's going to run the ball. They're going to get stuffed. And then not only so much the predictability, but again, you see tight end, I believe it was Stover, lets a defensive player who makes the play cross his face at the snap. So play really had no chance. So 1 was predictable play calling and 2 terrible execution on 3rd and money. And then come back 4th down. You're like, all right, here we go. Now he's going to throw the ball on some sort of formation play that, they've never run before and never will again. And sure enough, they're trying to run bunch trips, bubble screen to Tate, and Penn State had 5 DBs, I believe, in all seriousness, sitting out there waiting on it. So, that there again was another short yardage bust where, you got to get that figured out. Luckily, again, today, it didn't come back to bite them, again, to put points 1 and 2 together thanks to the defense. But that is something, again, that just shows up again in critical times, and they just failed to execute again. I don't know. I was expecting a Mark Givler meltdown on no quarterback sneak. I'm stealing your thunder here, I'm sure, but I was like, just sneak it. Put Tyleik Williams behind McCord and just push. And no, didn't see it. Obviously, Devin Brown going down did not look like it helped anything whatsoever because he was starting to become, he got him down there. He had that big 8-9 yard run to put him down there on the goal line. So we'll see how they adjust from there.
Yeah, and I'm not going to harp on this as much as the last time because people probably aren't going to want me to do this, but it's just mind blowing that you're down there. You're like 2 feet away. I mean, it was like it wasn't even like the full yard. I don't think it wasn't like a long yard. It was 2 feet. And, even teams that aren't great at quarterback sneaks convert those situations about 75, 80% of the time. And you've got 2 plays at that point. It's virtually 0% that 2 quarterback sneaks would not have got you in the end zone there. It's virtually 0%. If the first one didn't, the second one would have. So for me, that was like, I thought they learned their lesson because we saw one. Was it last week? And I'm like, wow, they figured this out. And that was the perfect time to do it. Perfect situation to do it. And then you run Mayan, he gets stuffed. And then at that point, I'm kicking the field goal the way that game was playing out. Because that was 3 yards. You've not been particularly good in these situations all year. Kick the field goal. You're up 7. Your defense is playing amazing. Go up 7, and then the punt fiasco happens, and I'm like sitting there like, oh my goodness, they just like blew this game with their decision making inside the 5 yard line. And so luckily the defense came up huge again, and we'll talk more about that here in a minute, obviously. And so we don't have to harp on this as much as we would have had the defense not stepped up. And then obviously Marvin's touchdown late put things away. But gosh, it's another wasted opportunity down there. Defensive line huge. JT Tuimoloau would be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft if he played Penn State every week, wouldn't he?
He would be. Yeah, he'd be a very, very. He's going to be a well-paid young man here a few months, anyways. Before we get there, you're exactly right. I mean. And they were talking about during the game, 4th quarter against Penn State. I don't know what they did, took his toys, stole his Cheerios, but for whatever reason, this man, it turns into Chase Young, Joey Bosa, Will Smith, super monster defensive end against Penn State in the second half. And he just absolutely, once again, just took over. And it wasn't he was getting rushed, knocking the quarterback off his mark. He was getting home when he had the huge sack, and then he had on the 4th down, he got around and knocked the ball out and deflected the pass there. So again, he just absolutely took over the game once again. It wasn't just him, but you saw. I know they got called for roughing the passer. That it is what it is. But again, you saw defensive tackles again getting a rush, not making the quarterback run for his life, and those pressures starting to hit home.
Yeah. even, Jack Sawyer's come alive a little bit the last couple of weeks. Kenyatta Jackson's given them some really good snaps. I thought this was the best game Jim Knowles has called at Ohio State, and like by a lot. It just felt like he constantly had Drew Aller and the Penn State offense confused. I thought he dialed up the pressure at the right times without overdoing it, without selling out. He was generally keeping his safety in the middle of the field, but there were some run blitzes that were perfectly timed and right in the right gap. There were times they showed some blitz, some pressure, and then they would back off and drop 7 or 8. And it just never it always felt like they were one step ahead of the Penn State offense, and that Drew Aller and the Penn State offense were guessing the entire game on what coverage, what look they were going to see. And you're a defensive guy, Devin, so I don't know if you agree with that, but I just felt that it's not just the result and the number of points and everything else. Like, yes, that's all great, but like, it just felt like Penn State had no idea what look they were going to get from Ohio State. I just thought he did a great job mixing things up and kind of knowing like, okay, we don't really need to get super, super aggressive, but every now and then when it was a key 3rd and 1 or just a key series, a momentum changing type of series, he would dial something up at the right time.
And, he saw some good formation adjustments as well, something I kept an eye on. He did a really good job of getting an extra hat in the fit based on some of the formations. And, you got to give a lot of credit. Davison, how do you pronounce his last name there from the Old Miss?
We're going to get you on this one by the end of the year. We're going to have
obviously he is not afraid and looks like he's, and rather enjoys getting into run fit. But there's some formation stuff where he was in the fit, unblocked, made some huge plays in the backfield there for Ohio State. Hancock as well got some formation stuff where he became the extra fitter. And to your point about Jim Knowles, Penn State didn't have an answer for that extra guy. And it was just the extra corner in the run fit. So it wasn't even necessarily a huge, like we got used to. He's got to bring everybody. No, it was by formation. It was a closed formation, meaning they only had a tight end on one side. And a lot of times 3 wide receivers spread the other way. And the extra corner's a free hitter, and they didn't have anybody to account for him. If you're watching the game, think about when the safety in the corner were, it looked kind of panicked, and they probably were because they had to get set. But the corner safety pointing and yelling at each other, I'm sure, about who's supposed to go where. But a lot of times you've watched the play out. That's when the corner would become unblocked and be in the fit for a tackle for loss for the Ohio State run game. To your point about Jim Knowles being a step ahead, it seemed like you had them really well scouted as well. Not just calling it, but prepared for the game.
Yeah. So one of my other 3 takeaways we kind of just hit on a minute ago, which is just the decision making there inside the 5. Again, you absolutely quarterback sneak there on that 3rd and short. And then if you don't get it for some reason, you quarterback sneak again. You're not getting stopped twice there. Once you took the loss, and it's now 4th and 3, it's kind of a long 2.5 short 3. At that point, up 4, I'm kicking the field goal. I just thought they really botched that. And again, the defense played well and kind of bailed them out and made sure that didn't go really sideways on them after the punt. But they are getting elite play from the secondary right now, which kind of brings me to my game ball. There's a lot of guys that could have got the game ball today. It could have been Marvin Harrison. It could have been Jim Knowles even. There are probably 3 or 4 guys on defense you could call out, but I think Jordan Hancock deserves the game ball today. I think Jordan has had a tough first couple of years at Ohio State, injuries, maybe not getting on the field as quickly as we would have liked, had a couple of, big plays against him last year, settles in at the nickel this year because they've kind of transitioned the nickel from like a third safety to almost like to a third corner on a lot of their looks, and has finally settled into his role as nickel and has been playing really good football this year. So he gets 5 or 6 games in at nickel, settles in. Oh, sorry, Denzel Burke's out. Like, go be our number 1 corner now. And so he was able to, and he juggled both today. So if you notice, like when Styles was in the game, Hancock was generally playing an outside corner role that Denzel Burke would have occupied. And then when they were more in their passing situations, they would bring in Jermaine Matthews, and then Jordan would kick into the slot where he's been playing. So to juggle 2 positions, moving back to like an old spot, in a huge game like this. And he made play. Like, it's not like he just did that and like didn't do anything dumb. Like, he made plays. He had a few passes that he broke up. He made 3 or 4 plays either in run support or after the catch type situations and short yardage. He had the 3rd and 2 or whatever, the shallow crosser he came up and stopped. He had the run blitz early in the game. I think it was the second quarter, and kind of shot the gap and stopped the back in the backfield, which I think was one of Penn State's field goal drives. So game ball, Jordan Hancock. Ryan Day is here.
And then Dylan Davis.
Ryan, are you tired of me asking about you winning with defense?
Stop. I knew that was the first question you were going to ask. Yes, I'm okay with it.
Where does maybe this defensive performance rank for you? I know it's early, it just happened, but from start to finish, that was about as good as maybe we've seen in your tenure here.
And they shouldn't have been out there at the end of the game. You know, that was not their fault. I thought first off, the crowd was tremendous. You know, Gene brought it up. I brought it up. When the shoe's rocking like that, it's difference maker. I thought our players fed off of it. You could tangibly see it on the field. They just fed off the crowd. And we got that sack on JT on that 4th down. That was as loud as I've heard in a long time. And I just felt the toughness, the physicality on defense. We started off with, you know, really stopping the run and then forcing them to throw the ball. And, you know, there's a lot of people who did a lot of great things on defense. But I got to give Jim Knowles a lot of credit and his staff for, you know, the adjustments they've made. You know, that was, you know, 2 top 10 wins now in the first 7 games where our defense played really well. And no, I'm happy for our guys. I'm happy for the success they've had. You know, they came off of the last season with a few scars, just like we all did. But you're starting to see the confidence grow in a big way.
Over to the left, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch, and then Cameron Teague Robinson.
Yeah, since Austin asked the obvious question, I'll ask you about the flip side of it. Obviously, you're without Travion and Emeka. How would you kind of assess the offense? Seemed like it was stuck in the mud a lot of the day.
Yeah, number 1 defense in the country statistically coming in, so we knew it was going to be a little bit that way. I thought there were times where we actually moved the ball okay. Didn't run the ball well enough. It didn't get enough explosive plays. We certainly, you know, could use, you know, Trey and Emeka back, but, you know, we had enough to win. And, you know, we don't score there. We had a couple really nice plays designed for Devin, and he rolled the ankle there, and you know, and so it was out for the game. So that kind of threw us off. But you know, we still can't get in on those 2, you know, 3rd and 4th down plays. That would have been a huge difference maker. But you know, overall, just, you know, not good enough. But I got to give Marvin Harrison so much credit. You know, to go for 11 catches for 162 and a touchdown when, you know, I would think most teams, the first thing they look at is how do I take away Marvin Harrison? And we targeted him 16 times. I think he was open on most 16 of those plays. And so, you know, he showed up in a big spot today again. And, you know, I would argue to say, and I haven't seen everybody play across the country, that, you know, it's hard for me to find somebody who's better in the country, you know? So, you know, I don't know, you know, how he gets on these lists or doesn't get on these lists, but to me, he's one of the most special players in the country.
Go for it on 4th and 2 there at the goal line.
I just, you know, when you're on the 2-yard line like that, I mean, I just feel like we got to punch it in. And the way our defense was playing, if we were going to get stopped, I felt like that was 98 yards for them to go. If you're playing the numbers on it, plus we got to get on the 2-yard line. I mean, there's no excuse for that. And that's our expectation.
10 first downs for Marvin Harrison too. Over to the right here, Dylan Davis.
Is that right?
Yes.
It was the same last year too. 2 years ago. Wow.
Kyle is now 1 on the road at Notre Dame, and he gets another top 10 win here at home. Over here, to your right. Gets another top 10 win at home here. I guess, how are you just seeing him grow up in front of your eyes in moments like this, where obviously, you know, wins are wins, but moments like these kind of, you know, have added significance?
You know, he took care of the ball. You know, there was the 1 sack fumble that was returned for a touchdown. So, you know, if it wasn't a hold there, you know, that would have been a whole different game. So we got to get rid of that stuff. It was a hold. I think that's why he double clutched it, but still, there were some really good things. He kept battling in there and, you know, did enough for us to win. But I know we're going to watch this film and there's still going to be things that we need to grow on, and then things that we did well that we got to enhance. And, you know, we'll watch the film and on Tuesday I'll have a better assessment of that to figure out if he graded out a champion or not. But, you know, I know we left a lot of plays on the field today on offense, and we didn't execute well enough in certain areas. Now, again, number 1 defense in the country. So you have to, it's all relative. So we'll look at it, and it was good enough to win, but certainly our defense put us in a great situation on offense to win.
Far left, Cameron Teague Robinson, the Athletic, and then Max Olson.
Ryan, coming into this game, you talked about
Penn State's ability to just hold the ball, time and possession,
Yeah.
and they methodically move down the field. They're 1 for 16 on third down today. What does that say about this defense that they don't give up big plays and they get off the field on third down?
Yeah, we did. 1 for 16 is just tremendous. And then 1 for 3 on third down. So I guess it's 2 of 19 for third and fourth downs. Unbelievable job. I think that was the combination of the rush and the coverage. I thought Jermaine Matthews played a big time game for a freshman, having to step up without having Denzel in there. That was big. I'll forget some guys because there was just a lot of great play on defense. But if we can play like this, then that's championship level defense. And if we can keep growing as a team, then we'll be tough to beat here down the road.
Over to the right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
I know it's 1-0 every Saturday is a goal, and it's a huge win. But in this era where you're always trying to angle for later on, it's a huge leg up in a lot of ways in the East. And Penn State had a win over Iowa. I mean, maybe that's not your thought today, but it could be down the road.
Well, again, I'm sure there's a couple teams out there, maybe not, that have 2 top 10 victories right now on their resume. And I think the most encouraging thing, although it's like this back and forth, is, we come out of this game thinking that, we probably should have won the game by a few touchdowns at least. So I'm going to wait for that tomorrow. I'm going to enjoy this because it is, you have to find these moments to enjoy, because this is a top 10 win. And if you said, you're going to beat Penn State today 20-12, where do I sign up? This is a good team coming in here, well coached. James does a great job. Manny does a great job on defense. Mike, as we know, does a great job on offense. And, they have good players, NFL players all over the field. So, like you said, the goal is to be 1-0. It doesn't always look pretty at times in these games. I think about the last few games that we've been in against, or not few, since I've been here, the games that we've been in against Penn State, it's like it's kind of ugly early on, and then everything kind of happens in the fourth quarter. I know, Jerry, you mentioned that last year. Like it was 16-14, and the final ended up 41-33 or whatever it was. So we knew we had to get this game into the fourth quarter. Tommy Eichenberg mentioned something in the locker room about how we have to be second half warriors. And if, we want to take the next step as a team, we got to finish this thing off the right way. Really good leadership there. I thought Cade Stover's leadership was tremendous. Xavier Johnson had to step up with Emeka out again. Yeah, I thought he did that. Leadership is important in big games like this.
Another Marvin Harrison stat. He's the first player in Ohio State history to have 5 games of 160 plus receiving yards. David Boston had 4. Over to the left, Max Olson, the Athletic.
Yeah, Ryan, over here. When you talk about Marvin being the best in the country, I'm curious, in big games, big weeks like this, what's his preparation like? What's his demeanor like today?
Yeah, you can interview him and talk to him about his exact routine, but people ask me, a couple of guys in this room when they're in the Woody during a Tuesday, Wednesday, or whenever they're in there, say, who's going to leave first, you or Marvin? I said, I don't know, but I always look before I leave to see. He's in there early in the morning. He's out there late at night. We'll practice, however long we practice. And when practice gets done, I'll go up and eat, and he'll still be out there on the jugs going through the routine. He goes through every play just going through it in his head. He'll go out there and throw it with Kyle. Then he'll get on the machine that he has, which you should see this machine. He can actually feed it, and then he presses the button and he shoots it to himself. Coach Mick made a rule that he has to bring somebody with him now, though. He can't just go on his own. But guys have embraced that. And that's a legacy that he'll leave behind, is his work ethic.
Over to the right, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com, and then Spencer.
Ryan, I think it was about 50 seconds left, and you had 3 timeouts at the end of the first half. Why just kneel it instead of maybe be more?
Just felt like we were coming out with the ball in the second half. I just felt at that time we'll just regroup at halftime. I didn't want anything crazy to happen. The fumble return for a touchdown was in the back of my mind. I just didn't want. I thought the defense was playing well. I just didn't want to take any chances. It was conservative on my end. I agree, but the number one goal, as we talk about, is to be 1-0. This is a top 10 game, and at that moment, I felt like the right thing to do was take a knee. It was on the 18-yard line. If it was on the 30 something, maybe I probably could have run it there and just see if you pop a run. Yeah, if I did it again, maybe you consider that. But at that time, I felt like it was, let's get into halftime. Let's figure out what's going on. We got the ball in the second half, and let's go from there.
Over to the left, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
First off, do you have any sense yet how long Denzel might be out?
Yeah, it was close this week. So we're hopeful to get him back for practice next week. And if he has a full week of practice, he'll be ready to go.
at the risk of being uncouth, is this kind of why you guys went out and threw a bunch of money at Jim Knowles to bring him here to coordinate this defense to win championship level games in this way?
Well, the expectation at Ohio State is to be the best in the country. And, our defense, I think, has a chance to do that. And when Jim got here, I know that was what he wanted to do. And he's done a great job of installing his defense, and especially in the first year. But now, he's really got a feel for the conference, I think. He's taken the next step with our personnel. And, the guys are playing with confidence. And I think he does a tremendous job of giving them enough information that they need, but not overloading them and allowing them to play fast and confident. That was the most confident and energetic group that I've been around probably since 19 out there on the field today. When the crowd was into it, I mean, the whole group was just, they had that look in their eye and they were getting the crowd involved. And a couple of times I'm like, guys, they're about to snap the ball. Let's go, get going. But I love that. That's the confidence that is building week in and week out.
Got time for just a few more over here to the right. Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Ryan, I guess in that same vein, how much does this defense allow you to change the calculus in the way you're calling offense? I know that in past years, maybe I don't want to speak for you, but you might have gone for a touchdown at the end of the first half. You might have kicked a field goal to extend it to 7. What has changed about you with this defense being as good as it is right now?
I just think in a game like this in particular, you have to do whatever you can to win the game. And if you feel like your defense can flat out win you a game, then you have to make sure that you're doing your part. You can't be selfish in that moment as much as you'd love to just, push the pedal to the metal. The goal is to win the game. Sometimes we forget about that. Now, there's other times where you want to find out where your offense is and, challenge yourself and grow and build and put them in situations to grow. I just felt like today watching the game that, our defense was in control of the game. And, if we could get a couple drives together and punch it in and control the clock, it certainly had a lot to do with the defense, but we did have the ball for almost 35 minutes in the game. And that was well done. I just think that, we could have been a little bit more explosive, and certainly not finishing that drive, hurt us and made it a closer game than it should have been. But, in whatever the game is, the goal is to win the game. And the more confidence we have in our defense, that allows us to play a couple different ways.
Third row left, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan Cade had a few big catches today. He's done that the last few weeks for you guys. I know Marvin gets a lot of the talk offensively, but what does he give you guys when he's out there making plays like that?
Yeah, probably one of the most valuable guys on our offense. Certainly Marvin is Marvin, but after that, Cade's right there. And we got a couple guys in there that, Cade does so much of the dirty work. He's such a great leader. He's such a tough player, and he's become a really good receiver. 4 catches for 70 yards, some big time plays. And so we got to keep finding ways to get him the ball. We got to keep finding ways to be creative, to do that for him. He deserves that. Probably could have done a better job as a staff doing that for him today. And we got to keep finding ways to be explosive in the run game. We got to do that. If we want to take the next step as a team, we have to be able to figure that part of it out. Had a couple ideas with Devin. Losing him hurt us because I thought maybe in the fourth quarter, if we needed to do in a 4-minute drill, we could utilize some of those things. We didn't have it. We looked a little out of sync. So we got to make sure that we have a plan for that as well. So got to figure that out and hopefully get these guys healthy. But yeah, Cade's a big part of all of that.
Right here in the front row, Tim May on 3, and then Adam Rittenberg.
There you go. Ryan, I was going to ask you what does it say about the toughness of your team, but I didn't want to get you going again. JT Tuimoloau in Penn State, and then, of course, Josh Proctor today also. I mean, what did you just see out of those guys? And we've asked you this before about what comes on with JT Tuimoloau when games are in the balance, so to speak, and speak to him, I guess.
Well, I think the first thing you notice when you talk about those guys, and just in general, I thought we played physical today. There was a point where we were running the ball too on offense where we were being physical. We were knocking them back. Matt was did some good things, not enough at the end, but early on. But the defense in particular, JT and Josh, I thought they were physical. There was more than just them. I mean, just overall played fast, strong, violent. But JT, I feel like for him when he gets into those moments where, okay, it's a passing situation and he bumps out a little bit more and his bucket's a little bit higher, like, here we go, because now, he knows what's coming. And, he can get himself, those special players can do that. They turn themselves up just a little bit more in those big clutch spots. He did again today.
Over to the left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors. That'll be the last one from that side.
Ryan, what went into the decision not to use Dallin at all today? And could Travion have played if you had needed him?
Travion, no, he ended up being unavailable. It was as close as we could to the game to decide whether he could go or not. We're again hopeful to get him back next week. I feel like he is close, but to check with Tony and going into the game said, if Trey's not available, where do you think we'll go? And we felt like if Dallin was available, that we would consider using him. Tony felt like those were the two best guys to go with at the time. And I trust him. He's the running backs coach. We'll reevaluate it this week and see if that was the right thing to do.
And final question, Adam Rittenberg, ESPN.
Ran right here. 7 games and you have some evidence of who you guys are. Yeah. I mean, what is the personality and maybe how is it different from other teams you've coached here at Ohio State?
Yeah, you're right. I think the first thing is just an experienced group of guys that has been through the fire before. We've always been talented, but sometimes we've been young and inexperienced. You think about, 19, 20, 21. I mean, really talented players. I mean, NFL players, guys who, are first rounders, but young. And sometimes playing against guys who are 21, 22, 23 years old in the COVID years, sometimes more than that. And this year's team is not only more veteran, but the third-year guys, those guys have played a lot of football. You think about JT and Jack and Tyleek and, Mecca and Marvin. Those are all third-year guys, but they've played a lot of football here. So the combination of experience and I think, age and maturity is probably the biggest thing. Style of game, style of play, I would say, our defense is really strong right now. We have a big-time playmaker in Marvin. We have a super dynamic tight end who's, doing a lot for us in both ways, a quarterback who's growing. I think the biggest part of that is, hopefully getting, some of these guys healthy and continue to build the passing game a little bit more and the running game to be more explosive. If we can take that next step, we have a chance to be really good and reach our goals.
All right, Coach, thank you very much for your time. All right, folks. Hey, Caitlin and Lexi, if you can help us get a couple of players at the tables, people with computers on tables, need you to lift those off. We're going to have Marvin Harrison Jr. at the front.
So Ryan Day there on the wing. Looks like we are going to be getting Marvin here in a minute. So we may switch to him when he takes the podium. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But it's interesting, Day's comments about just the confidence now of having a defense behind him maybe does change his thinking, Devin.
I think there's a lot to be said for that when as a play caller, you don't feel like you have to win the game on every possession. I made mention, of course, Coach Tressel, obviously, but it felt like one of those type of games where, hey, you just need to get a first down so you can play the field position battle because – it felt like the defense, basically the way the defense played today, Penn State couldn't get out the backfield. So why would you want to put, I think you could make that argument going back to, here's Coach Knowles right now. He'll explain it better than I can.
Gabe, where's the microphone? Oh, okay. Yeah. That's fine. Okay, we'll open it up. Just go back and forth. Who's ever got it? Yep.
Jim, we talked to you in the locker room after the Peach Bowl, and there was a sense of frustration or disappointment in your voice with the way that last season ended and the way that the defense, I think you said, almost let the offense down. To go out and have a performance like this in this big of a spot in this game with your defense and win it with defense, what does that mean to you to see this group kind of start to come full circle?
You're happy for the players, and happy for our head coach and all the fans, and that they now have confidence that they can win the game on defense. I don't look at stats, but I guess Penn State had a pretty good defense, so we talked to them before the game about, hey, you're not just playing Penn State's offense, you're playing Penn State's defense. If they make one play, we got to make two. If they make two, we got to make three. So it's a sense of maturity, leadership. Maybe a little chip on your shoulder, and we've done a lot of work to have everyone have faith in us for sure.
Over to the left, Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
Jim, you mentioned on Tuesday how you had to get Penn State off schedule because they could just move the ball so methodically. 1 of 16 on third down. What does that say about where this defense is right now than maybe where it was coming into the year?
They know the scheme, and when I make adjustments during the week and the things you talked about, that we had to get the stops, we had to get them off schedule, and we make little adjustments in the scheme, they pick up on it, and that's a big deal because winning those downs in a game like that is huge. And that only comes with preparation and with guys who are knowledgeable about the scheme.
Over here to the right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Jermaine was thrust into a huge spot today. How do you think he played and handled that position?
Yeah, like I said, the kid's got moxie. I don't think he knew how big a moment it was, and that's not a bad thing. He just went out and played, made some tackles. Didn't flinch. At the moment of truth, and really, really proud of him. He's a good player.
Nathan Barrett, Cleveland.com, over to the left.
When we were all talking about how you had sort of backed off the blitzes a couple weeks ago, Ryan said something along the lines of, well, I know he's got more dialed up. And I was thinking of that when Jordan broke through and got that third down TFL. Kind of just talk about that play maybe and how it just fit into what you were trying to accomplish in this game.
Yeah, that again, you go back to knowledge of the scheme, with a guy like Jordan who plays both positions. And, that was really a blitz based off of the formation. They started huddling a lot, not showing us the formation, where I can usually make the call based on the formation. They started huddling, and Jordan had to recognize the formation. He had to recognize the formation, see it, and go, so that really shows a lot of progress with the defense and whole. And Jordan is just, playing both positions and doing a great job.
Over to the right, Jeremy Birmingham, the podcast, Rivals.
Hey, Jim, last couple weeks have been up and down for the linebacker group. Today, Tommy leads the team in tackles, Steele right there. Cody plays a big role. How important was it for you to see those guys be productive today, knowing that they were going to be tested in the short passing game, the running game, etc.?
Yeah, it was, that intermediate passing game combined with a, really strong running attack. We knew that they were going to be a real focus in terms of making plays. I've always had faith in them, and, they're doing the right things. And then it's just, it's that competitive excellence. It's showing up when we need them the most. And those guys are veterans, and they showed that we can count on them.
Over to the left, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus. It's huge.
Ryan, you mentioned that the line, the pass rush today. How do you evaluate their performance? It felt like they were in outer space all day.
Man, when you watch them play, they're so violent and so elusive, really. And you got JT and Jack coming on each side, and it's like I wouldn't know what to do as a quarterback either. So it just hats off to them. It shows all their hard work throughout the week and throughout the offseason. And so, I just can't say enough good things about them.
You're playing a lot of snaps at the beginning of the year. Is having Cody there to go in sometimes and play with Tommy and then bring you back on the field, is that keeping you better for fourth quarters?
Yeah, I mean, it's Cody Sarman we're talking about here. I mean, hell of a ball player. I mean, I trust anyone that goes on the field, man. It's just so much fun just being all of us just being able to be out there and just have fun. I mean, I think right now what's really happening to the defense, everyone's just unlocking this feeling you have whenever you first start playing the game. You're just running around having fun with your friends. I think that's what we're doing now. It doesn't feel like we're doing a job. It feels like we're just doing what we love.
Did it feel like a chore last year to try to get this defense back on track?
At times, I mean, it was just because our heads were just all over the place. Now we're just a lot more pinned in on what we need to do and how we need to do it in order to win. So, I mean, I was just going out there and cutting it loose.
For both of you guys, all week we've heard that Penn State's best defense in the country. There's some of that statistically. You guys come into this game, feel like you guys had something to prove that you guys were the best defense in the country.
Yeah, I think we always feel like we have something to prove. I mean, it doesn't really matter who we're going up against. And I think that speaks to Coach Knowles' mentality. He says it doesn't. We could be going against our practice team. It doesn't matter. We always have something to prove, and we want to prove people right or wrong. And I mean, today is just another stepping stone for us. It's not the end goal. We want to go farther. So, just another building block.
And you guys talk about progress, like you want to get better each and every week. Notre Dame this and Notre Dame, you gave up 26 points combined in your 2 top 10 games. Last year it was over 100 against Michigan, Penn State, and Georgia. Where have you seen the most growth in this team from how things ended last year to where they're at now that you can do this back-to-back on big stage?
I would just say just being more on our assignments. I think there's still definitely a lot of stuff from the Notre Dame game and this game that we got to improve on. But I think we're just able to pick up on that stuff. We're able to make adjustments throughout the entire week a lot better than last year. Because, sometimes last year we were making the same mistakes over and over again. I think this year now we make one mistake, we're able to fix it next game.
Do you care if the perception of this defense has changed after 2 lockdown performances like this from last year?
You gotta, at the end of the day, even if it's good or bad, you gotta block out the outside noise because it's just, at the end of the day, it's just us in that silver bullet room.
You two are two of the leaders of this team. How do you come off a huge win like this and you have to go on the road? How do you get this group to refocus or celebrate tonight?
Yeah, no matter what, any team you play in the Big Ten is a big game. So, we're gonna obviously enjoy this game, but it's back to work, and it's that's the tough part about college football. It's every week so much they're gonna give you your best. They're gonna give you the best. So, it's gonna be a big challenge for us next week, and we're gonna step up to it and go get it done.
Last question, Steele, is Skittles the best celebration candy or no?
I just grabbed it. It was on the table over there, so I decided to grab it and eat it.
Would you normally grab another kind? What's
it was between that and Kit Kat. I decided to be a little fruity today.
what color Skittle are you?
Green Skittle.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Say things early in the series, get them in situations where we could force them to try to throw the ball down the field.
Coach, thank you very much. All right, folks, we're going to bring Kyle McCord up to the front podium, and we're going to put JT Tuimoloau to that back left one. We can go ahead and wrap up with Jordan Hancock as well. JT, if you could go back to the far back one there. You're fine. Yeah, let's wrap up Jordan Hancock. We'll keep Marvin for a couple more minutes there. We'll open up the floor over here. Dylan Davis to the right with Delaware Gazette.
Kyle, was there a little bit of a time where you needed to kind of just settle down? Were you a little amped up to start up that game? And I guess, was there a particular point where you kind of felt like you settled in?
Yeah, I felt like early on that first drive, I thought we did a pretty good job of moving the ball, made some plays, and obviously went down, put a field goal up. But I think just for me, at least, I feel like I just needed to ease into the pocket a little bit more. Obviously they're a really good D-line, but I thought our line did a really good job today, and I felt like the more and more plays we started running, the more and more they started to wear down. So I felt like we did a good job just continuing to play, and I need to do a better job, I think, early on. I'm just, I wouldn't say relaxing, but just calm in the pocket.
Helped lead your team to a win on the road at Notre Dame, another top 10 showdown here at home against Penn State. I guess, how have you seen your own confidence grow? And I guess where do you see yourself being now compared to where you were on that road trip to Bloomington?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like you said, was the confidence factor of it, just the comfort level too. I feel like the offense, we've definitely grown. I feel like we did a good job of moving the ball today. I thought a few times in the red zone, we stalled, obviously, and didn't put up a touchdown. But for the most part, especially in the second half there, I feel like we were really moving the ball how we wanted to. And so I think it's just continuing to figure out how to take those next steps, how to continue to put points on the board, because obviously the defense played lights out today. So I think if we can really just, mix our offense and with the way the defense is playing, it's going to be scary.
Over second row left, Lori Schmidt, Columbus Dispatch, and then Nathan Baird.
Kyle, I'm sure you're a guy who is aware of what's going on in the college football landscape. What do you think that a win like this does for you guys?
Yeah, I think a top 10 win, I think it's week 7 or 8 in the college football season now, and we have 2 top 10 wins. So I think in terms of resume, I don't know if, we could have a better resume right now, but that doesn't mean anything if we don't continue to win, don't continue to stack these games. And I think ultimately everybody in that locker room knows, it's a next game mentality. And as long as we continue to keep winning, everything else will take care of itself.
Real quick, reading between the lines of Ryan Day's comments up here, he seemed to be stumping for Marvin Harrison for Heisman. You see him every day. Could you speak to what kind of candidate he is for an award like that?
Yeah, I mean, if it's truly the award that goes to the best player in college football, I don't see how he's not, in the mix. I mean, obviously what he's done, especially these last few games, I think, I don't know if we've seen kind of a stretch like that, just how consistent he is, how reliable he is. So, obviously you guys say it just like I do. He's done a great job, and obviously he's a lot of fun to play with.
Right here in the front row, Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated.
Kyle, I know when you're playing in a game like this, you're focused on the game that's in front of you, right? You're not thinking about Notre Dame. But you just referenced you got 2 top 10 wins now the first 7 weeks of the season. How much more confident in your own ability did you feel coming out of that Notre Dame game? And did it help you settle in when you were playing in an environment like this?
Yeah, I think especially a game like that, with the type of opponent that it was in Notre Dame, who I think is a really good team, as well as the environment. I don't think you can really draw up, especially early on in the year, a tougher game for a team to go into, and getting that win was huge. And, I know for myself, and I think as for the rest of the team, that was a huge confidence boost, being able to go in there and get a win. And so we obviously got back from that game, tried to correct what was wrong, but at the same time, we knew that if we can continue to use that momentum rolling, it's going to be a good year.
Follow up. There's been a lot of attention for Marv and the way he makes incredible catches. The throw you made to Cade Stover down the seam where he caught the ball over the top of a defender. Can you touch on what you've seen from Cade and his work ethic trying to develop as a receiver so he can go out and make plays like that?
Yeah, I think when I first got here, it was Cade's 3rd year, and at that time, he was kind of bouncing back and forth between linebacker and tight end. And then just seeing the work that he's put in over the past few years, especially with Coach Bailey, I think the work speaks for itself. I think he's always been a very physical presence. I feel like he's never lacked anything in the run game. But then just seeing the work that he puts in his route running and his ball skills, all that, I think it's really starting to show. And if teams want to, give Marvin extra attention, that's going to leave other guys with, one-on-one situations like you saw there. And obviously he went up, made a great play, and he's been doing that for the entire season.
Over to the left, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Kyle, a year ago, this defense gave up some of those explosive touchdowns, and it left the offense at times in a place where now you guys had to go out and sort of make up for that. With defense playing the way it is this year, and they obviously had made a point of improving there, but the way the defense is playing this year, has it changed the vibe around this program at all? Like week to week, is just a different relationship that is happening right now?
Yeah, I think with the way they've been playing this year, I think it takes the pressure off of the offense. It's not that mindset that we have to go and score a touchdown every single time or else the game's going to be in jeopardy. And so just seeing what Coach Knowles and, the guys have been able to do, it's been, I think a huge testimony to their work ethic. I know those guys are putting in extra hours watching film, getting all their checks right. And to see them come out and really shut that offense out, it takes a lot off the offense's shoulders.
Okay, we're at the point.
Kind of just came out of nowhere. Yeah, I was just talking, and then I guess God put it on my heart. So, I guess it works out well.
There's a moment, last 2 questions. Moment today when you looked you could see as a leader of the team, how you were one before the clock expired?
Not one bit. I mean, they're a team that goes to the end until the clock hits 0. So we knew no matter what, we're gonna go as hard as we can for the 6A to B, which is our motto, until we look up at that clock and it's 4th quarter, it's 0 time left.
Coach Day says you turned it up a notch. Once again, we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. Remember, but you turned it up a notch in certain situations. Did you feel that before the sack? And what comes over you?
Holy Spirit. I mean, God just covers me with his blessings, and I just go out there and play free. And when I'm out there, there's times where you just have to be a ball player as well as help your brothers.
Describe what these 2 quarters y'all just had with Penn State the last 2 years. How would you describe being in the middle? What's it like? Because it comes down to the guys making plays. It always does.
I think it's I think war is the best way to describe it. It's never always on one side. It's back and forth. Start off with a defensive game. Start off with just field goals, and we start to score. So you never know. But this game is it's just filled with a lot of discipline. Each team be disciplined. Each team fighting all the way to the 4th quarter. So it's a long, hard fight war. That you have to put your body through in order to come out the win.
Thank you. Last question right here.
JT, when the offense isn't scoring, is it kind of frustrating you guys, or does that actually kind of motivate you to kind of continue to go out there and just drive after drive after drive?
It motivates us. I've always been saying that we're a family. That QB1 over there, that's my brother. So I always go tell him like, hey, keep doing your thing, keep balling. We're gonna give you the ball back. No stress, no feel like you have to go score. Play you. God made you for a reason, and for us, it's just a lot of motivation. Let's it kind of becomes like a game. Let's see if we can stop them again. Let's see how many times we can get a 3 and out. So it's always fun with this defense. JT, thank you so much. Yeah.
And I feel like every single week we're getting better and better. So now it's how can we continue to minimize those mistakes, continue to minimize those errors, and continue to build? Because like I said, I think the sky's the limit.
Bigger picture question. How do you develop a chemistry with a wide receiver like Carnell, a young guy? You obviously years with Marv and Julian and Emeka. I mean, how do you develop chemistry with a young receiver?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for him that he really impressed me with was when he got here, he had a really good understanding of just defenses and how his route, changes based on what they're playing, what kind of leverage to attack in a certain route. And so anytime a young guy has that kind of football IQ, it makes my job a lot more easier. And then I think just getting as many reps as you can get with him, and just continue to build that chemistry. And I think he's taken some really good strides. And, obviously I think the sky's the limit for that kid. And, I'm so excited to see where his career takes him.
Final question for Kyle. Dan Hope, 11 Warriors. We got to wrap it up with JT, please.
Yeah, Kyle, I mean, you guys have had a knack, whether it was Notre Dame, Maryland, today, where when you guys have needed a drive in the fourth quarter, you've been able to come up with it. What do you think it is that's kind of allowed you guys in those clutch moments to find that another gear?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think the biggest thing is what we talk about, just competitive excellence. When someone needs to make a play, whether that's me just putting the ball in a one-on-one situation, letting a guy go up and make a catch, or someone winning on a route, or the line making a good block up front, opening up the run, whatever it is, I feel like the guys have responded to that every single time. And, obviously we would like to get that going early on, but I would much rather have a team say that, we start slow and finish really well than vice versa. So I think we just need to continue to keep building on that and ask ourselves, how can we do that earlier in the game?
And one final question from Tim May.
Yeah, just to follow on that, when you see Marvin just break wide open on that drag route, I mean, what is going through your mind at that moment in the game that maybe the best receiver in the country is wide open? Just don't screw it up. I mean, what was going on there? I mean, after all the struggle today.
Yeah, no, I think we had I think they called a timeout right before that play, so we were able to talk it over on the sideline. We got the look that we wanted, and obviously he ran a good route and got open, and so it's just my job to get the ball in his hands and let him go to work.
Great. Kyle, thank you very much.
All right, I think that's it for the players. I guess we'll find out, but yeah, Kyle McCord, JT, we heard from Steel Chambers, Cody Simon. Marvin, I think, was available back there. So if you missed anything, we will have these videos of each player individually, the full videos up on youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. So if you go there afterwards, you can get anything we didn't show you guys. So we're bouncing around. We're trying to get you guys as much stuff as possible. So if you want full videos of a certain guy, they will be uploaded to youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle afterwards. Devin, what is to make of this Kyle McCord, starting slow, and then when it really is crunch time, putting these drives together or making these throws? How much of this is the clutch gene, and how much of this is like, well, we got to start getting off to better starts? I mean, there's got to be kind of a balance here to this, right?
Yes, is the answer to your question. You can't, you can't, I don't want to say dig yourself in a hole, but you got to play better to start the game, and you don't have to worry about being clutch, if that made any sort of sense to you, and everybody out there. And rightfully so. It is a big conversation point. McCord has got to play better still, but as the game goes on, obviously Notre Dame game today, second half of today, he started to look really clutch. And so it's a little bit of both. I think there's something about maybe adrenaline pumping, and he's a 3-point shooter. That he only makes it with, second left or whatever, type analogy you want to go with. But it's both. He's got to play better to start. Because, again, we're not talking about, if you're an Ohio State fan and, you're getting paid 10 or you're a Ohio State ball coach, and you don't go there to win your side of the conference. I mean, the the whole goal is to win the whole thing. So if you're Kyle McCord and you're the Ohio State offense, the answer is yes, you've got to play better and you've got to start faster. Obviously, you like being clutch and being able to make the big throws when they matter the most. But, if you can jump up 35 on somebody, you don't need to necessarily worry about making those game-winning drives or those clutch throws all the time. So it's actually both would be my answer to your question.
And, you saw the quarterback battle graphic there. It was a struggle today for Drew Aller. I mean, this was my thing coming into the game, why I thought Ohio State would win a close game is it was very much like Notre Dame for me in that I don't know that Penn State's got the weapons on the outside to keep Ohio State's defense honest. And I think that played out today a little bit, but I think they also did a great job of getting after Aller, confusing him with different looks. As I mentioned before, the press conferences, I thought this was the best game Jim Knowles called. What were your impressions of Aller today, and how much of that, I guess, how much credit is credit to the Ohio State defense versus, maybe a lack of weapons for Penn State? I'm sure it is some combination of both, but just kind of how far, I guess, would you tilt it in either direction on that?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you could tell he's a good-looking young quarterback who has a big arm, and he'll have a bright future, as a quarterback at Penn State. But again, it's his first road game, huge game. And of course, much was made about he's the Ohio kid playing for Penn State and the Pennsylvania kids playing for Ohio State. So I'm sure there is some of that, how could it not be, given where he grew up playing ball and whatnot. So I think he's going to be a good quarterback, but again, it's first start, in a game like that. And at the same time though, we talk about Ohio State helping McCord out with the run game and whatnot. Penn State need to find answers to help him out as well. And, you can go back, watch the game again. I'm sure there's some times where, take the check down or dial up some, they dial up some easy completion throws. You heard Urban Meyer talk about it at halftime. How many slant routes, it was the slant fest or whatever he was calling it, trying to get the quarterback in some rhythm. So that's stuff you got to do to help a young quarterback out. And then as the game progressed, and the game started get away from Penn State, they had to play from behind and they had to start spreading out and letting it rip, because prior to this game, the best you could say is that Penn State was a team like, hey, we're going to be good enough on offense, but we're going to let our defense win the ball game. Well, this was a ball game where they needed the quarterback to be better and the offense to be better in general to especially down the stretch they're playing from behind to win the ball game. They just weren't quite good enough, fortunately for Ohio State fans to get it done.
With that said, I mean, is this a team that can beat? Do you think Penn State can beat Michigan? I mean, they'll get them at home. I watch Penn State and I just don't know where they're going to be able to threaten you vertically. And I think that's going to be a problem against Michigan. And I actually picked them before the season to beat Michigan. So I'm like waffling on that now. I'm not sure what I'm thinking about that one right now.
Yeah, you definitely got to have a guy that can take the top off. I mean, they're talking about during the game, and it goes without saying, so everyone's talking about now is, the difference in offense was Marvin Harrison Jr. today, really. I mean, all things being equal, couldn't really get the run game going. But Ohio State had Marvin Harrison Jr. And you get him the ball and get him in space, and he takes care of the rest. And we saw how that ball game turned out. And it doesn't really seem like Penn State necessarily has that guy that could do that, to your point about how can we keep Michigan from loading up the box and stopping the run. So they need to find some ways to manufacture those explosive plays to make it a ball game here. Was it 2 weeks? I think they played Michigan, if I'm not mistaken, 3 weeks, something like that. So they're going to have to find a way to manufacture, or it could be another game where it's going to come down to 20-12 again. Another one of those types of ball games. So they're going to have to find a way to find some explosive plays because, again, that's another big game they got coming up here in about, again, 2-3 weeks, I think.
I think their head coach is going to have to coach a little bit more aggressively too. He's got an abysmal record against ranked teams, especially away from home. You get that early 4th and 1. I thought it was a break for Ohio State. I mean, there were so many weird plays in this game, like momentum-wise, that I thought mostly went Ohio State's way. Not all of them. Obviously, the punt didn't go Ohio State's way, the turnover there. But there, we talked about the turnover there that didn't happen, the fumble that was kind of taken back because of the defensive holding. But You're 4th and 1 at your own 45. You've just completed a field goal drive. They had just driven down and tied the game at 3. It was the only good drive they'd had to that point in the game. You get the ball back. They had at least one first down up to that point, so you're starting to move it again. It looked like they had clicked on a few runs, and you get 4th and 1. Well, really, I'll take that back one down. You got 3rd and 1. You throw. I think they threw a slant there on 3rd and 1. It didn't connect. Proctor, I think Proctor got it up, got his hand on it, and then you call timeout, and then you punt. I couldn't wrap my brain around that. I think if you are trying to really like win this game, this is a game that Penn State needed to be the more aggressive team, in my opinion. I thought Ohio State had a larger margin for error to win this game than Penn State. And you're on the road. You've struggled against these guys. You're hearing the noise. You can't win these types of games. And you kind of I thought he dropped the ball there, both with the 3rd down play call and then the ensuing decision to punt there. And I thought it was a good early momentum boost for Ohio State. I thought Penn State had a chance to take some momentum there and didn't do it. Would you have played that differently as well?
No, I am. I'm with you there. Jim, Coach Franklin there at Penn State has what one win against Ohio State. That was a 16 game, if I'm not mistaken. And they're the underdog. They're on the road. Franklin in general, the big knock on him is he can't win those games like you just mentioned. You have every reason in the world to go for it. What's the worst that happens? You met expectations. Oh, Penn State lost a big game on the road. Well, that's what everyone says they're going to do anyways. Play to win. Put some fire in your guys that you trust them to go win the ball game. Again, what's the worst that happens? Especially as well as their defense is playing. That's the other thing too. Who's to say Ohio State would have done anything with the ball if they did get to stop on 4th and 1? I mean, that was a very fair point. That point in the ball game, they very well could have stopped Ohio State to 4 and out right there. Well, so it's not necessarily a crazy idea at that point in the game and season, et cetera. And for Penn State take that chance and go for on 4th and 1. So I'm with you there. Franklin definitely could have, in hindsight, been much more aggressive. Underdog on the road. You've got all that. I don't want to call it negative or bad, but all those factors working against you and your reputation. Go play to win. Go play to win.
Narrative's going to continue there on that one for Franklin and for Penn State. Want to take a quick second here. Thank our sponsor, WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a better by allowing you to sync all of your sports books in one app, track all your bets in one place. You can see your current action, your betting history, your stats, and you can also sign up for sports books and collect their bonus offers all in one app. They also have a great Twitter account for gambling folks. You can follow them at WagerWire on Twitter X. You can download their app in the App Store or in Google Play Store and search for WagerWire and enter promo code Buckeye Huddle, all one word. When you do that, we would appreciate that. But great resource for anyone who likes to track the lines or have a little action on the game, keeps everything in one place for you. And they're incentivized by you winning because they don't take the action. They just organize everything for you. So they want you to use the app. They want you to win. So it's a good partner for us. And so just want to throw that out there for you guys. Everyone go download that app and enjoy. Looks like the gang's just about ready over there. One thing I want to say before we kind of send it to them, big recruiting weekend for the Buckeyes, tons of visitors on campus. I'm going to be getting off of this show here shortly, and I will start working on the recruiting impact of what's happened here today and start trying to get some updates on the site for you guys at BuckeyeHuddle.com. But look for that throughout the weekend, and probably into Monday and Tuesday, we'll be getting stuff from the weekend on the recruiting trail. But it looks like our guys here at Buckeye Weekly are ready. Tony, Tom, Kevin, let's roll.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Devin. Hello and welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Tony, I traveled back in time today and watched a football game from 20 years ago.
That's exactly my impression watching this. This was old-fashioned Big Ten football. It was a blast from the past. I felt watching it I'm thinking this felt like an introduction to Big Ten football for Ryan Day, finally, after being here for 6 years now or so, 7 years.
Welcome to the Midwest, Northeast boy.
Winning with defense, which he seems to be happy with. I don't know if he wants to grow accustomed to it, though.
Well, I'm sure if you were an offensive guy, it's great to win with defense, and now you're at least not hearing the same complaints. So that's good. But, if you're the offensive guy, you I'm sure want your side of the ball to have a little bit of shine. And they made a few plays, but very clearly this was the defense carrying the day. It was not the defense in the special teams. It was not the defense in the offense. It was the defense carrying the day. And then the offense did what it needed to for the most part, that it never got quite as tight at the end as I expected it to. There was the onside kick, but you never really felt like Penn State was going to drive against this defense until, once they went into prevent, okay. But Penn State never felt like they were putting together a real serious drive. It was like, well, something stupid could happen. You got the guy getting hit with a punt or something like that. Like you're within something stupid could happen range, which is, probably a little disconcerting for people, but that was about the extent of it.
Reminded me of the 2007 Michigan game where Ohio State didn't need any offense because they knew Michigan wasn't going to move the ball on them because Chad Henne had a bad shoulder and Drew Aller has an inaccurate shoulder, in this one, and they were pressuring him. So as Ryan Day said, talking about the taking a knee at the end of the second quarter, he's like, well, I had no problem with that. There's 50 seconds to go. You're at the 18.
Yeah.
You just saw the defense run a fumble back, that got called back. Like, I had no problem with that. You get the ball out of the half. Now, as he said, could I have run it? Yeah, they could have run it, but it didn't surprise me, especially getting the ball out of halftime. And with the way your defense is playing, as long as you didn't give Penn State something, you'd be okay. And they sure tried to give Penn State stuff. The muff punt there, or the punt went off of a leg or whatever, and then getting stuffed at the goal line. Basically, had back-to-back turnovers right there.
Yeah, and the one that irritated me a little bit, that was like, all right, you're playing this way too conservatively, was not the kneel down at the end of the half, but the drive before that where you're punting from the plus 38. Like, that's Kirk Ferentz punt territory. And I know you've got a defense that is in the caliber of Iowa's right now, so you can punt and play defense, but you also have Marvin Harrison Jr., who is someone that rather notably Iowa does not have. Like, when in doubt, do something, have that guy do something cool, like call the Marvin Harrison does something cool play, which they called quite a bit and very successfully. But, it feels like it was 4th and 8 and it was at the plus 38. Like, that's a time, like, I get it. And Jesse Mirko killed the punt and it was okay, but, you'd like to see him be a little more aggressive because, you're dealing with the same thing that you dealt with at Notre Dame where, they won, but there are so many different little things that could have happened that would have made them not win. And that's, you're playing with fire a little bit there.
Yeah, they love to kill that ball down there, especially against a bad offense. So we get a super chat.
We have a super chat from Mike Smith. I don't know how you saw it, but that defense looked very 2019-like with the level of play they showed. Still some dumb penalties on both sides. Kyle seems to do better running tempo. Marv is amazing.
I don't know if everybody was watching. Most people are still watching Ryan Day. You probably missed it. Said this is the most energetic and confident of a defense that he's been on the field with since 2019. So hard to disagree. They're starting to get a pass rush that is reminiscent. Not that JT Tuimoloau is Chase Young, but he has some Chase Young moments to change a game, to alter, to really put Penn State off schedule. And then we'll eventually get to the 1 of 16 on third downs because they were way off schedule. But yeah, it's as good as it's the best defense since the 2019 defense, which is saying not a lot.
Yeah.
But and this isn't a great offense that they're playing, but they locked those guys down until the last drive. At one point before then, they had 160 yards of total offense before that final drive, like 167. Because at that point, when that final drive started, Ohio State had like 367 and Penn State had 167.
Yeah.
And anytime you're holding a top 10 team to under 200 yards until that final prevent drive, I mean, that's legit.
Yeah, that is definitely legit. And that's, the 12 plays, 73 yards on that last drive. You take that off and you're down at 167, like you said. I mean, that's 167 yards. That's Iowa production. That's 1 of 16 on third downs. That was, and that was a lot like what I thought you might see from Drew Aller in that situation, with the Ohio State defense being pretty darn good, Penn State not having the wideouts to really lean on, not having the big plays on the ground to lean on. You're putting a lot on a young quarterback facing a pretty good defense on the road. Crowd was real loud. It felt like that was, that was kind of how I envisioned that game going. And I thought Penn State maybe gets another touchdown and Ohio State gets, instead of kicking one of those field goals, they score a touchdown. I had 24. We both had 24-20. And I think, the defense, the only thing that was surprising to me was exactly how dominant that defense was.
Well, and Nick Singleton sits the first two series, and then he comes in on the third series. His first carry goes for 20-something. His first three carries go for 42 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And then they pretty much shut it down, because after that, he finished with 9 for 48. His first three went for 42. Katron Allen could get nothing going. His long run was 8 yards. They didn't have anybody else. Drew Aller's obviously not a running threat, but 26 carries, including sacks, for 49 yards for Penn State, 1.9 yards per carry, which, Tom, is also the exact number that Ohio State averaged, 1.9 yards per carry.
Boy.
Which is why this is a very, very Big Ten game, but one that you can appreciate because there's talent on the field. That I think that's a qualifier. That's the difference between Iowa versus Wisconsin 20-12. But that would have been like 15-5 or something. But there's talent, but the offense is not outstanding. Kyle McCord says they're close though. So.
Mike Smith says on the broadcast, they said Penn State only had 6 yards total in the second half before that last drive. The freshman corner, that would be Jermaine Matthews, played great. Whole secondary was in the receivers' pockets all day. That is probably not the best wide receiver unit that this defense is going to face this year, but they did to a just okay wide receiver unit exactly what you should do to a just okay wide receiver unit. It was just constantly. Aller looked rattled because he was getting pressure and receivers were not open and he was, he has to throw into tight windows and he's not comfortable doing that right now. That was a defense just locking down an offense.
And they were missing their best cornerback.
They were, yeah. To do that without Denzel Burke, you put Denzel Burke on the field. I don't know how much better they could have been, but you put Emeka Egbuka on the field, you put Travion Henderson on the field, and you're kind of going, you probably could have gotten more production out of the offense. Tony, when you look at a running back room that has 2.6 yards per carry for Mayan Williams, 2.4 yards per carry for Chip Trainum, 2 yards per carry for Xavier Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anyone else healthy, Tony, in the one running back room that maybe had shown more productivity over the last 2 times we've seen him in extended run? Can you think of anyone?
Well, TC Caffey was on the availability report. He's injured, but it was very interesting because Ryan Day was asked why not Dallin Hayden, and he said, "Well, I talked to Tony Alford before the game, and he said, the best options were Chip Trainum and Mayan Williams, and now we'll go watch the film to see if that's correct." And to me, that sounds like kind of saying, "Yeah, I kind of have the same question about why aren't we seeing Dallin Hayden?" But
I think the decision making on not playing Dallin Hayden when no one else really has it going. I mean, there were moments when this was the best that Mayan Williams had looked all year, and then I'm looking at Mayan Williams' stats and thinking that what I saw during the game doesn't match what's showing up on the stat sheet. But if you don't have anyone who's averaging 3 yards a carry, I think it's time to try something else, right? I mean, I know they won, and that's great, and this is 2 really good wins, and I don't want to take anything away from this, and I don't want to make this a negative show, but it feels real weird. Like, what's the deal?
So I'm just looking at his first 4 carries went for 24 yards.
Yeah.
And then the next
20 carries went for 36.
So
yeah,
that's And you're right. It was the best he looked. It was the most decisive, the quickest he looked for 2 series or whatever. And then halftime hits and Penn State makes their changes, and it was all of the running was done. But at that point, there's always this outlet of Marvin Harrison, like where it's like, yeah, it's too bad the running game isn't going, but on 3rd and 8, we can still throw it to Marv and he'll bail us out. Except for when you're not accurate throwing the ball. Like Kyle McCord threw it, completed his first 5 passes. Then he missed like his next 6. And so there's just this ebb and this flow. But then you look at the numbers overall, and he finished, like he completed 64% of his passes, 63. So he's 22 of 35, 286 yards, a touchdown. Like eventually things just, he always seems to level out at a point in a good way. Like everything calms, and then he's drilling guys, and then like you didn't need too many points, but you missed on the goal line. You lose a possession on the muff. And as Ryan Day said, we probably should have won by 3 touchdowns in this one. That's, if you don't let them score at the, if this, if that, there's definitely a road, maybe a closer road, a bigger road to a 3 touchdown win than a 1-point loss or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it never felt like they were in any real danger. But like I said earlier, you were in the, within the blast radius of something stupid, where all it takes is, hey, remember Nate Clements getting hit with a punt? I mean, if you let someone hang around,
Chris Campbell slipping against Lee Evans.
Yeah. I mean, you bite on it out and up. And Sean Springs, Ty Streets, you have seen this happen before, and it's all in close, low-scoring games. It's not, that's not generally 45-38. That's, hey, it's 14-10. That was, and by not pulling away, that was kind of that. You put yourself in danger of that. We have another super chat. Glasswing Butterfly. Kate Silver played great. This is the year of the tight end. Yeah, that is. We've been telling you for years. Has that been a bit? No, it's always been true. Yeah, four targets, 4 catches, 70 yards.
Yeah, a tremendous catch, taking it away from a defender, and he has been very, very good. He's better than Brock Bowers. I think people are saying that. But
bigger week than Brock Bowers this week, that's for sure.
But he's the guy that you can continue to depend on. As Ryan Day said, they probably didn't do a good enough job of finding opportunities for him, especially with Emeka. Like he becomes, even with Emeka out there, when Emeka was healthy, Kate Stover was still like 2B to Emeka's 2A, or however you want to put it. And it's not going to go away. And if you want, by all means, Brian Harline and Ryan Day are saying, please try to take away the tight end and let something else open up.
Right. And if you've targeted Julian Fleming 6 times and you've gotten 1 completion for 9 yards, there was the one that was history's most obvious pass interference call.
Twice
didn't get called. Or was it 2? Okay.
Well, no, he got grabbed twice on that deep throw.
Yeah. So there's one, but if you're 4 for 4 targeting one guy and 1 for 6, I don't mean to oversimplify things, Tony, but it feels like you want to look for the guy that's, and speaking of me oversimplifying things, explain it like I'm 5.
Yes.
What's the thought process behind taking Marvin Harrison off the field in the goal line and putting a backup defensive end on the field?
Give me some time. Let's go ahead and take a break. And I'll come back
no
with an
disrespect to Caden Curry, who's doing a perfectly wonderful job, but I don't care who you take off the field. You got to keep Marvin Harrison out there. And if Marvin Harrison's out there, you should have if there's one guy on him, you should have an automatic. And, I touch the right side of my helmet and it's a slant, and I touch the left side of my helmet and it's a fade. I don't, football is a very complicated game, but.
How confident were you that they were going to pick up that 4th and 2? Because my confidence was like, no, this isn't going to happen.
Which one on the goal line?
Yeah.
Well, they put 3 receivers to one side, and you're already in a really compressed area of the field. Again, I'm perfectly willing to have this explained condescendingly to me at some point, but I feel like I'm not the one who's overthinking this.
Well, and then so Devin Brown goes out, gets his ankle rolled, and it looks like they're going to go with the Kyle driver and sneak it with Kyle McCord. But then I also think that they're thinking we'll pretend to show it because we can't really do this because what if Kyle gets hurt? So I think they're
Right.
I have no problem with them protecting him at that point.
Yeah.
Plus, you shouldn't need to push your quarterback in to go from 1 yard. Now they lose a yard, and then it's 2 yards out, and at that point, there's no way they're going to run there. Even though Ryan Day says when you're down at the 2, you should be able to get in there. It's like, well, you should, but you're still throwing. You're throwing a screen.
You should, yes. Put 2 receivers on one side, put Marvin Harrison by himself on the other side, and let the defense tell you what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Either they're going to put 2 guys over there, and then you have an advantage numbers-wise, or they don't, and you throw the ball to Marvin Harrison, who is, I don't want to oversimplify this, but pretty good at football.
Yeah, only a long catch of 35 yards. 16 targets, though. It's pretty ridiculous. That's nearly half of Kyle McCord's 35 passes.
Here's Marvelous Marv. It's a former Met, Tony. 1962 Mets. Marvelous Marv Throneberry.
Nobody cares.
All-American numbers. Harrison Jr., 11 catches, 162 yards, a touchdown, 16 targets, 11 catches. You should be throwing him the ball 16 times a game. And if Emeka Ibuka's there, then Emeka Ibuka's getting more of the throws that Julian Fleming got, and Mayan Williams is probably not getting 24 largely unproductive carries.
Jerry Emig was during Ryan Day's press conference said 10 first downs on those 11 catches from Marvin Harrison. So
yeah,
told you he's a sticks to stick. He's a chain mover. That's all. He's just a possession guy.
Yeah. I would just throw him the ball more. But.
You can't throw him the ball more. It's 16 throws. At some point Penn State's going to catch on and double him.
It felt like that's something that could have come up during film study in advance of this game. Like, hey, this guy's pretty good.
They just go in there like they know Julian Fleming because they recruited him. Like,
yeah,
we can't let Julian Fleming beat us.
And Carnell Tate, the only guy on this sheet that we had not mentioned, 5 targets, 3 catches, 21 yards. But he had a couple nice receptions as well. FDR is great. Says, Tom, can you ask Ross Fulton what Fry and Alfred can do to get run blocking and running game back to normal? It's been a problem for several years.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've been able to run the ball they ran the ball well in 2021 because they still led the Big Ten in yards per carry. It just wasn't maybe as much as they didn't run nearly as much in 2021 as they did in other years. But the lack of expectations that this is going to turn into something, even though they did relatively well against Purdue, and then they started out with this one, doing okay with when Mayan was in there. Chip in there for his pass blocking. Dallin Hayden not playing because of his pass blocking, and then you see Chip give up that sack, and then Mayan Williams comes in and plays well initially, and then I guess there's something to be said for being able to, and this is thanks in part to Marvin Harrison. You run the ball 41 times, 2 yards a carry. Like that is a level of ball control that requires you to pick up first downs via the pass.
Well,
and you do.
And you know what that reminds me of? That stat line for running backs. Do you remember the 1997 Michigan game? What Michigan's rushing attack was? It was like 41 runs for 42 yards or something like that. But what did Michigan have? They had a pretty good defense that you could lean on. And, outside of the one play by David Boston, the big play against Charles Woodson, they really didn't do a whole heck of a lot. Now, that Michigan team had good special teams, so it's not exactly a one-to-one comparison. But that, you can, if you have a defense like that, you can, that is a take the air out of the ball kind of offense, which is just, can you imagine going back 2 years and saying to people, now listen, here's what's going to happen in 2 years. Remember the 2021 Ohio State football team. Here's what's going to happen in 2 years. They're going to be playing defense. They're going to be running the ball, just trying to run out the clock. What a time to be alive.
Well, and Ryan Day talked about being okay with the defense winning and relying on the defense and not being selfish as like an offensive coach to want more points and be too aggressive and cause a turnover, and then you're putting the defense at their own 30 or whatever, and it's a quick change defense that has to it's an unfair situation. It's the Maryland touchdown to start the game from 30 yards out. Like, try not to have that happen. And as long as you don't do that for this defense, you're going to have to be a very good offense to score more than 20 points.
Well, and this defense was put in that spot when you had the ball hit the guy on the, I don't even know who it hit on the punt.
I don't either.
Whoever it was, where you had that and it's a sudden change situation. What did Penn State do on the first play after that? They tried to run a double pass, and Ohio State sniffed it out and was,
one guy was double covered.
Yeah, I mean, it was like they came in like that. That is the classic time to get something like that thrown at you. And the reason it's a classic time for it to get thrown at you is because it works. Like that is a time when you get blindsided by stuff, and they did not get blindsided. It was just smart assignment sound football.
Yep.
It was just I mean, you have a much better sense on this from where you're watching than I do, but how many like coverage busts did you see today?
None offhand that I can remember, and that's pretty routine for what they've been doing this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is and once again, no Denzel Burke. Like that's impressive. I mean, we are through the looking glass here. The Ohio State defense can do no wrong, and the Ohio State offense is stepping on rakes all over the place. I mean, goodness, what a bizarre season this has been. But here they are.
I've
You're
seen them
7 games in, and you've got 2 top 10, top 15 wins.
I've seen them win a national championship this way.
David of Judea says, say a bit about Ryan Day's play calling today.
I'm sorry. What about it?
Just your thoughts on Ryan Day's play calling.
Early on, I thought it was pretty good. But then I think he even talked about you get into this, again, not wanting to be selfish and put the defense in a bad situation where, the short field. So early on, I thought they were doing some good things. They were moving the ball. They were able to run the ball with Mayan. The pass to Chip, like they had some things. And I'll tell you, there were receivers running open. Receivers were open. The passes just weren't getting there. And then in the second half, there was some passes that did and were dropped. So it felt like the offense was eventually going to hit their stride because there were receivers. You saw that there's throws behind them, throws high, throws low, but you saw receivers that were open. And you did not see that with Penn State because even when they caught passes, there was a hand, like Jermaine Matthews or Davison Igbenogson or Jordan Hancock. They were right there. But I was always confident that the passing game would pick it up because, the play calling, the routes, they were there. It's just a matter of connecting and protection, and maybe losing Chop Robinson for Penn State helped the Ohio State passing game when he went down and gave Kyle McCord some more time to throw.
Yeah, and it did feel like Kyle McCord had a reasonable amount of time to throw. I think he got sacked twice, but he was not running for his life by any means. And when did Robinson go down? Was that in the first quarter, early second quarter,
or so?
Something like that? Yeah, I felt like it was pretty early in the game, and that's a big loss. That's taking JT Tuimoloau or Jack Sawyer off the Ohio State team. Super chat from Kevin N. I don't think this is even really a super chat. Guys, the officiating. Thoughts? I mean, I personally couldn't help but notice the Big Ten celebrating the 30th anniversary of the vast anti-Penn State Big Ten conspiracy. The hold call on the defensive hold on Marvin Harrison that ended up negating that long scoop and score that Penn State had. If you don't have, if there's not that hold there, Marvin Harrison's probably opened the balls out, and it's, this was not, that was a big swing in the game, but it was, this was not like the thing where Marvin Harrison steps half an inch out of bounds and it has nothing to do with the actual play, and it just or the motion that negated a touchdown. That was a penalty that directly led to the outcome of the play. So that one I don't really have a huge problem with. There were missed pass interference calls against Penn State, but they're not going to call everything. That's literally a strategy, is they can't call them all. And so they're not going to call them all. Ohio State got some calls on that too. So, I mean, were there egregious missed calls or something that I'm not thinking of?
I still think that deep shot to Julian Fleming, that was, you could see him slow down because he's being grabbed. And when it's a deep shot, everybody is looking at it.
Yeah.
So somebody should be, the Josh Simmons hold was, I don't know that was a hold, and that took a play away. JT Tuimoloau gets held worse on just about every, and he got held a couple times, but overall it's it's average. Like that's generally what to expect every game, and it's not going to be perfect, and there are going to be stuff that you really hate. So just come to expect it. Just enjoy it.
Well, Ryan Dawes is enjoying it. He says, "Hello, Buckeyes. Who's a proud fan? I know I am. I mean, this is a good win for Ohio State. I think that we're sitting here and nitpicking stuff, and that's we did this with Michigan last year, and looked at a bunch of stuff, and it was like, well, when you get to a certain level of the sport, you're going to look at the hey, this needs to improve. Even in a win, this needs to improve because what you saw against Penn State today, that's probably not enough to beat Michigan. That's now where the season's kind of defined is, are you playing well enough to beat Michigan? And I don't know that effort necessarily gets it done, but they didn't have Emeka Egbuka, they didn't have Trey Van Henderson, they didn't have Denzel Burke. So, you look at this performance compared to the Indiana game or some of the games the first couple weeks of the season, boy, this team looks substantially better. The offensive line looks substantially better. I mean, there has been significant growth and progress with this team.
Except for the running game, and that's going to be the thing where the defense and the passing game are going to continue to have to bail that portion out. And, they took a turn for the better against Purdue. They found some things. But when there's only a few things that you found, it's very easy for a very good defense like Penn State to close those off pretty quickly if there's any success going on there. I do think, obviously, against Michigan, facing J.J. McCarthy with the secondary rush and the escapability that he has, it's a totally different animal than what you're going to be facing against Penn State. So that's something that is, the defense is going to play their best game after they're playing the initial portion of the snap, which is going to make that one a difficult one for them, for sure.
Yeah. M. Goboski says, enjoy it, Buckeyes. Most national media types pick Penn State. And I think that's broadly true. I feel like I saw, I mean, it was not universal, but it was.
Desmond Howard picked Ohio State, so that's all I was focused about.
You can't rely on that. He always picks Ohio State. You can't rely on Desmond Howard's son. Desmond Howard's son was walking around both game day and the Ohio Stadium wearing a Michigan sweatshirt.
Was he shooting video?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a good, Tony. That's a great question. I did not see the Wendy's guy again. Yes. It was, did you not? You should follow me on Twitter.
Oh. I don't care about stuff.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, what happened? Because I'd rather hear it than follow you on Twitter.
Yeah. I'm just kind of thinking through the rest of the game and notable things.
Can I talk about the secondary?
Sure.
Because I feel like the Thorpe Ward people were there at the game, and I feel like they went there to watch Denzel Burke. And then so Denzel Burke is not playing, and it's like, what a bummer. But then you watch what Josh Proctor does. You watch what Davison Igbinosun does. Jordan Hancock lights people up on the ground. Lathan Ransom, like everybody in the secondary played well. And shoot, not even mentioning Jermaine Matthews, who, talking to Jordan Hancock, said that they have complete confidence in him because they see him do it against everybody in practice, and he's playing against first teamers. He's playing against Marv and Emeka and Julian Fleming. So, like, Marv has said the same thing. So I just think it's interesting that the Thorpe people are probably like, and then you go there and you see Josh Proctor making plays and Davison Igbinosun and just the excitement that those guys play with. It's fun to watch.
Can I tell you a little something about the bowl people and the award people?
Yes.
Sometimes, Tony, they just want to go watch a football game.
No.
I feel like a lot of the scouting that can be done might be able to be done over video. And, were the Orange Bowl people here really was that based on really got to see these guys in person to figure out if we want to take the team that we're contractually obligated to take or,
Well, yeah, you might be right, John, because I was going to say the Cheez-It Bowl people were also here, and that feels like, it's kind of above your.
The Cheez-It Bowl is not the Cheez-It Bowl that it used to be. It's not in Arizona anymore. I don't know.
Right. No, it's like Florida or something.
Yeah, it's somewhere in Florida.
Or late.
Yeah.
So, but
not germane to this conversation either way. Moving on. I mean, 6 passes broken up today. That's one for Jordan Hancock, 2 for Josh Proctor, 1 for Jermaine Matthews, 1 for Lathan Ransom, 1 for JT Tuimoloau. That's secondary, man. That secondary is good. And, again, you don't want to act like the Penn State wide receivers are the greatest thing since sliced bread, because they are very average. But they didn't have even a chance to look anything more than slightly average during the course of the game. That was a 4-quarter dominating performance.
And I'm always impressed by how closely the catches are to being broken up.
Mm-hmm.
There's a hand there. It's the Davidson, the touchdown catch at the end. If the Big Ten really had this vast conspiracy against Penn State, they probably could have overturned that one just because, it's one of those things. Or maybe this seals the deal. Like, oh, well, there's no conspiracy. Here's your touchdown. Now go have fun with your onside kick.
Yeah.
But even that one, like the defender was right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's been impressive to watch. The coverage is there, and then the lack of missed tackles, I think, is also key. And it's been the most sound secondary we've seen since 2019, for sure. This isn't the best linebacking since 2019. But I think everything else is the best we've seen since 2019.
Yeah, it feels like this is a defense that has a lot of the parts that have been missing for the last couple of years. Let's talk a little bit about that secondary, because you got to hear from a bunch of different players earlier in the show, but I want to let you hear a little bit. You got a chance to talk to Jordan Hancock a little bit. Anything that people need to know leading into this?
Talking about the joy, the pride of winning with defense, and now that it's good that the team has confidence in the defense, and obviously you have confidence in yourself that you're able to put forward an effort like that to shut down a team like this. Just want to know what it's like winning with defense this year.
It means a lot, maybe in the past couple of years, offense couldn't rely on us, but that's not the case this year. And we just want to make a statement to the whole country that we can win games on defense.
How fun is that, given what's going on in the past couple of years where the offense is leaning on you?
It's super fun, man, because people could have doubted us, but now I feel like we flipped the script today in past games, so it's just super fun.
What was the key today? I mean, 1 of 16 on third down, Penn State. Just
1 of 16?
Yeah. 1 of 16 and like 1 of 3 on fourth down. Just those are pretty good numbers. You're going to win a lot of games like that. What do you think?
That just goes to our preparation. Coach Knowles getting us prepared. Secondary, Coach E and Coach Walk just preparing us for this game, and we just had to take on that challenge, which we did.
Jordan, all week, you guys hear Penn State's the best team in the country. Statistically, they're this, they're this, they're that. Do you feel like you guys had a chip on your shoulder? Do you feel like you guys had something you wanted to prove today?
For sure, yeah. We took it personal because we feel like we're the best defense in the country. So we just had to show those guys where we came here to play too. I mean, they had a lot of attention on their defense, but I feel like we just had to play on a chip on our shoulder.
Last year, you played 3 top 15, top ranked games: Penn State, Michigan, Georgia. You have over 100 points, 130 points those 3 games. You have 26 against Notre Dame and Penn State. What does that say about the growth of this defense? It's a lot of same guys with more experience.
Just more experience, man. We got a lot of people that can play everywhere. We got young freshmen stepping up. We got a lot of people that's playing multiple positions. So it's making us play a lot better. So we're just playing with confidence.
And when you don't have a guy like Denzel, and you put a freshman in like Jermaine, his performance today, just kind of talk on that, and you guys keeping it going with him.
Yeah, we weren't surprised about Jermaine today. He's been doing that in practice against our starter receivers, so we felt like with those receivers over there, he could cover them, and what he did today, I'm just proud of him.
Jordan, does it even say more to you about the way this defense played today that you did it without Denzel?
Yes, sir, it did. We missed Denzel a lot. He's a great cover corner, lockdown corner on his side. He shuts down his whole side of the field, but we showed up today to play. So.
Hey, Jordan, I know you're an Ohio State Buckeye and you've got to concentrate on what you're doing, but you're not ignorant of the college football landscape. What's the win over a Penn State win to you guys?
It means a lot, but at the end of the day, we just got to learn from these mistakes because we had some mistakes over there. So we're going to enjoy this one, but we're just going to move on to the next one.
Can you quantify how loud it was and how much of a factor that the crowd was for you guys?
it wasn't as much a factor for like me personally because I can't really hear on the field, but the other team, you know, with their false starts and stuff like that, them getting off track, it was a huge part. I'm thankful for our fans. We got the best fans in life. So.
Jordan, that third down hit, I think you had the one you were in the backfield for. What did you see on that play, and what led to that?
I just had that B gap, you know. I just had to make a statement. Corners can tackle too, so I just had to come down and make a play.
Yeah, how'd that hit feel?
It felt good, you know. He big back too, so I had to bring it.
Jordan, reading between the lines of Ryan Day's comments, he was kind of stumping for Marvin Harrison to be considered for the postseason award, the Heisman probably. You see him in practice. How hard is he to stop?
How hard is he to stop?
Yeah, hard.
I don't think you can stop him. You can slow him down, but you can't stop. You can't stop him. So.
They were 1 of 6.
Jordan Hancock saying you can't stop Marv. You maybe slow him down, but the overall physicality that Jordan Hancock plays with, you know, jumping that B gap and getting into the backfield on a key play, the way Davison Igbinosun plays, the way the safeties play, the physicality. Ryan Day talked about it after the game. It's top down, and I don't know whether it starts in the secondary and goes to the defensive line or starts in the defensive line and goes back, but they all meet in the middle, and sometimes they meet in the backfield.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the defensive stats right here on the screen, I mean, just no one had the 17 tackle game. It was just everyone just played well, and you didn't have a bunch of tackles getting made 30 yards downfield. It was just if a pass got completed, the guy was down on the ground pretty quickly. And, you know, this is a little bit of the luxury of being Ohio State, where you lose the guy who has been good enough to be a starter for 3 years. And so what do? Well, you take the guy who was a top 50 recruit and just move him in from the slot, outside from the slot corner, and then you throw in your 5-star super freak, you know, Swiss Army knife, Sonny Styles in there in the slot. And, you know, and surprisingly, Tony, the show just keeps rolling. I don't know how they've managed to duct tape and baling wire all of this stuff with all of these top 50 and 5-star recruits.
Good to see Sonny Styles get a sack there as well in that game.
Mm-hmm, yep. Super chat from Ryan Dawes. Is Parker Fleming going to be on the staff in 2024? You know,
unless maybe he gets a head coaching offer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be interested to see how that gets handled, because you have a special teams coordinator dedicated to special teams, and it feels like there's looming disaster on special teams at least once a game. And, you know, I mean, boy, this is not necessarily on Parker Fleming, but Jaden Ballard reaching above his head to field a punt was just like, oh, don't do that. That's not the move.
Beautiful catch, though.
It was. I had Jalen Marshall flashbacks when that happened. But, you know, the guy getting hit with the punt, missing a field goal. I mean, it doesn't look like a unit that has someone doing all of the attention to detail stuff you would expect if you have a dedicated special teams person.
Yeah, and it's not just this game, it's most games, like you said. I think it also comes down to, will the NCAA raise the number of full-time assistant coaches? Because James Laurinaitis can't be a graduate assistant forever. Like, at some point he needs to be on the road recruiting. And I think that is the biggest factor in whether Parker Fleming stays or gets not even demoted, but like his seat goes to James Laurinaitis.
Right. I mean, James Laurinaitis is at the point where I think you've got to get him in a role where he can go on the road and recruit. Because, you know, Parker Fleming, I don't know. Maybe Parker Fleming is extremely dynamic in living rooms, but I can't imagine he has the impact that like a James Laurinaitis could have in terms of being on the road. That has always felt like, I mean, if you want to keep Parker Fleming around and pay him $500,000 a year, like, great, absolutely, God bless, do it. I don't care, but it doesn't feel like that's the best utilization of resources when you could have a James Laurinaitis doing it.
A different role, and he didn't really take a pay cut.
Right.
You know, still very involved.
Yeah.
No, and when you see Ohio State getting only so far with the top linebacker recruits in the nation, you know, they can get visits, but they can't get anything beyond that. And your James Laurinaitis can't go and see them. And Jim Knowles never been known as an outstanding recruiter. And so for the defense alone, you I don't know how long you can go with this. Now, if I recall, they gave Parker Fleming a 3-year extension. So he's like, this is year 2 of the 3, I think. So he's guaranteed at least another year, but that doesn't mean he has to be one of the 10 assistants. Like,
Right. Yeah.
And
yeah.
honestly, to me, I would be surprised if they go through that. And I have to imagine there's some sort of promise to James Laurinaitis, and you can't just keep relying on the NCAA to raise a number and say, well, we thought the NCAA was going to do it, but they didn't. Sorry. Here's your, I think Laurinaitis is making like 130 or 150, something like that. Pretty good gig for a graduate assistant.
Yeah.
Plus, Tom, most importantly, the free education.
I mean, he can finally make something of himself after making, I don't know, what was
the Commons.
Yeah.
Right. Buckeye D for sure. That's always great. Have his parents put something on the Buckeye D, something like that. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Just to touch on this, because Ohio State does have a couple of linebackers committed for 2024 already. Peyton Pierce out of Texas, number 200 in the country, 4-star recruit, and Garrett Stover, number 118 in the country, 4-star recruit as well out of Big Walnut. Garrett Stover, in case you're wondering, is the free space on the bingo card this year in terms of which recruits are visiting. I don't think I saw Tavian St. Clair today. He was there? Okay, then I just missed him. But yeah, Tavian St. Clair and Garrett Stover have been pretty consistently. Yeah. Sam Williams-Dixon was there as well.
Yeah, I talked to Javen Boggs a week or two ago. He said that they would be up there.
He was there. There with Tavian St. Clair. What's interesting is some of the guys who are not committed, who have been like Carter Lowe, offensive lineman out of Toledo. That's at least the 3rd time we've seen him this year. There's another offensive lineman too, who I thought, boy, we've seen an awful lot of you. Sam Greer. Yep.
Was he still in crutches or no? He's good now.
So yeah, this was a big recruiting weekend. Well, I'm sure talk to Mark Givler will be. Yeah, Mark Givler will have a bunch
the
of
defensive end committed to
a Florida commitment
yeah.
there. Yeah, he was in a gray tracksuit.
So
and Jamie French, the 5-star Alabama wide receiver recruit. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I'll just tell you right now, now's a good time to join BuckeyeHuddle.com, become a member, and have all kinds of updates for you from the recruits. And yeah, the Jamie French thing is interesting because we wanted to see him this June for camp, and he wasn't able to show. And as I was talking to Mark on the Skull Session Recruiting podcast, the Florida kids that can make it for the noon games, it's always a crapshoot because you never know if there are going to be flight delays and things like that. And, they're getting here as late as possible in terms of just, you can only get here so early. And then any kind of delay can just ruin that. And you're like, well, I'm not going to make it there until the 3rd quarter. So I'm just going to pocket this, and go in, a month or so, something like that.
Super chat from FDR is great. Do you think Michigan had a quote unquote advanced scouting at the shoe this week? What can Ohio State do to overcome the alleged advanced scouting to beat Michigan?
Tom, I did think those helicopters were flying pretty slowly over the air, over the stadium there. I'm just saying, I'm not accusing the U.S. military, but maybe.
Did you have your foil on? From Treebuck. Not that it matters, but will OSU deserve to move ahead of Michigan this week? Sorry if this has already been asked. I mean, if you're looking at body of work in terms of quality of resume, Michigan has done everything you could possibly be asked to do against a schedule that is the caliber of Michigan's schedule. But they haven't really done. They haven't beaten anyone of any real consequence yet, and they're not going to beat anyone of consequence tonight either when they're playing Michigan State. So, Tennessee 20, Alabama 7 in Tuscaloosa. Boy, that is a halftime score. Boy, that is not how I saw that happening.
No, Joe Milton lighting up the Alabama Crimson Tide. Yes, Ohio State should be ranked ahead of Michigan. And now, as I know, everybody watched this game. If this was the SEC, you get two great defenses, 2 fantastic defenses just smashing each other. This is Big Ten football. And the Big Ten, a lot of those games turn into, these are 2 bad offenses and they can't do anything. So what is the narrative there? But being compared to another Big Ten team like Michigan, then maybe that softens the blow. But I think, Ohio State should be ranked ahead of Michigan based on who they've played. And they will be based for the people who do their rankings based on resume. Ohio State will be ahead of them. for the people who don't and just go based on, I had them 2 last week and I don't want my poll to be wrong, like that sort of thing. They're just going to keep Michigan there. But maybe if Michigan struggles against Michigan State, which I do not expect to happen.
No.
But if it does, then yeah, I would expect Ohio State to move up.
Well, and I think at this point now, when you're getting, we are only 10 days from the first college football playoff rankings reveal.
Can't wait.
Unless something deeply stupid happens in Madison next week, and that's a possibility. You have seen Ohio State have that letdown week after a big win over Penn State. But yeah, I recognize that Wisconsin is not good. Do you need me to regale you with the time that Brian Ferentz hung 55 points on this team?
No, Tom.
No. Yeah. Okay.
Today's a great day for Ohio State fans, right?
So, but unless something deeply stupid happens in Madison, when that first playoff rankings show comes out, Ohio State, I think there's a possibility that Ohio State is number 1, and not that they are clearly the best team in the country. Not that this is just based on the way the committee does it. The committee's going to go quality win on the road against Notre Dame, quality win at home over a Penn State team that is probably going to be ranked in the top, 8 to 10, probably even after that game, I'm guessing. So, who else has a resume that's that strong right now? Georgia doesn't, Michigan doesn't. Not that those aren't great teams, but just if you're going based on resume, I think Ohio State has a decent possibility of being number 1. And then, I think then at that point, it comes down to, do they beat Michigan? And if they don't beat Michigan, how many other conferences have a champion that has lost a game or 2?
Yeah, and I think you and I have talked about this, or me and Marcus Hartman were talking about this, and Kevin as well. This win, whoever won this game was basically sitting on deck of the playoffs. Like they're number 5, waiting for somebody to bail out. That's where they are, even with a loss. They're almost in, but not quite. But you can start making some plans.
Yeah, well, and I was listening to the College Football Nerds preview of this game, and they were talking about the fact that, the winner of this game was, saw their Big Ten championship odds go from 30% to 70% or something like that, just because you've got this enormous hurdle behind you now. And your college football playoff odds do basically the same thing. So this is an enormous hurdle for Ohio State. Was it perfect? No, but man, this was a big win for this team.
Yeah, and it's now you move on and you build on it.
Yep. So let's hear a little bit from James Franklin. He I was over there. He was late coming out of there. I think that was a long conversation in the locker room. This was a very disappointing loss for them. This is a team that, I think was harboring real national championship hopes. And now you got a real uphill battle where they need to beat Michigan, and then they need Michigan to beat Ohio State. And then they need the tiebreaker to break the way that it looks like it could. But man, I think this is a real disappointing game. So you're going to hear his opening statement, why they went forward on 4th down, kind of midway through the 4th quarter. I'm just going to run through the questions here, just because sometimes they're a little hard to hear. There was a question about, was today a referendum on his was today sort of an encapsulation of his time at Penn State? They're now 1-9 against Ohio State, I think was the stat that the guy cited. And James Franklin did not care for that question and answered a different question. And the reporter's like, well, since you didn't answer the question, can I get another one? And he said, I think I answered your question. Didn't answer it the way. It was a little salty. And then, how he evaluated his play calling on offense, evaluating Drew Aller's play in this environment, and then ending with the scoop and score overturn. So those are the questions you're going to hear. You're not necessarily going to be able to hear all of them, but here's a little bit from James Franklin.
First of all, like always, want to give Ohio State a ton of credit. I'm not sure. We'll watch the tape. I'm not sure if we didn't just watch 2 of the best teams in college football. Obviously, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. But you got to give them credit. We went into this knowing that we needed to have an awareness and affect and limit the impact. Thank you. Of 18 in the game. We had a hard time doing that. Guy's a heck of a player. You got to give him a lot of credit. But to me, really, the story of the game came down to 3rd down. We weren't able to stay on the field on 3rd down on offense. which was the biggest difference in the game, in my opinion. So give Ohio State a ton of credit. Open up to questions.
Start with Rich and then go to David.
James, is about 8 minutes left. You have the ball at your 43. Why did you decide to go for it on fourth down?
Yeah, at that point right there, if you punt, and they obviously able to run the game out, you feel like you have to be aggressive. You may not get the ball back. We needed to be aggressive in that situation. Obviously, when you don't pick it up, it's not the right decision.
Dave and Sauber.
It's probably not the right moment to ask a big picture question. I'm sensitive to that. But is it unfair for people to judge this rivalry, the 1-9, the regime, as a referendum on you overall? Because I think they might. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, I totally get it. That's a good football team. What I'll talk about is today. We lost to a really good football team on the road. We had our chances. We battled. We weren't able to capitalize. Big picture things, I'll be happy to talk about that at some point. But right now, I want to talk about we lost to a really good football team on the road. Didn't make enough plays when we needed to make the plays. And I think it's a fair question. I get the question, but right now I'm worried about this game.
You're not going to answer it. Give me one more, okay? Do you think?
I did answer. I didn't answer the way you wanted me to, but go ahead.
I think it's a non-answer, but anyway, do you think your wideouts in your passing game was good enough to win this game against this defense?
No.
Why?
We didn't make enough plays today. Did not make enough plays in the passing game. We weren't able to create separation. We weren't able to create separation with enough time to allow those guys to separate. Combination of all those things.
Sauber then Brennan.
James, how would you evaluate your offensive play calling today? Your team offensive play calling.
Yeah, I think we were at a one-possession game, so I feel like we could have ran the ball a little bit more, but we'll evaluate all those things on Sunday.
Brennan then Johnny.
James, how would you evaluate Drew's play in this environment?
Yeah, I think all year long we've called the game and managed the game to put him in the best situation to be successful, and we weren't able to do that today for a number of reasons. But we'll look at it. We'll see what the run pass percentage is, especially when you take the 2-minute situations at the end of the game out of there, and see what those numbers look like and what the efficiency was.
Johnny then Donnie.
On the defense, James, you guys have a fourth and goal stop. You made some plays on that end of the ball. Do you feel like the way they played enough to deserve it?
Our defense played extremely well. So did theirs. We knew coming into this game, these are two of the better defenses in college football. They played their tails off. There's no doubt about it.
Donnie then Audrey.
James, the scoop and score that got overturned, obviously a big turning point. What was the sense on the sideline of that? Did you get kind of an explanation on the timing of the whole?
Yeah, they called holding, defensive holding. Obviously, that's a huge play in the game, huge momentum play in the game, and then I think after that followed up with another interference call. But that was obviously significant. But for me to sit here and talk about how that call looked, I couldn't tell you. I just know what they told us.
Audrey then Ron.
That is obviously a pretty frustrated James Franklin. And, I'm sure they're playing the what if game right now too, where, boy, what if that scoop and score counts? Because Ohio State ended up with, was that a touchdown on that drive or a field goal on that drive, something like that? I mean, they scored points on that drive. So you put an extra 7 on Penn State score and you take 3 or 7 off of Ohio State score. And, and this is a guy who has gotten his program to a certain point, and now they're just bumping up against that glass ceiling. And they have not been able to get over the hump with Ohio State. And the only time they've beaten Ohio State in the entire time he's been there was on the weird blocked field goal. Like, you need the weird, dumb stuff to happen to beat Ohio State, and it has to be at home. And, now I guess the good news is Ohio State's off the schedule next year. So that's a positive for Penn State. I'm sure there is an extremely high level of frustration among the Penn State fan base right now. And I think there's probably a pretty high level of frustration and disappointment in that locker room too.
Yeah, this was an opportunity for Penn State to get this win, and it didn't happen. And frankly, it was a one-score game at the end, but it was not close to happening. And even if they would have tied it or taken the lead, it still feels like the Ohio State offense would have been able to make enough plays, would have tried to make enough plays. And also, eventually, I feel like the Buckeye defense was going to make plays as well, as you saw at the end when they knew they were going to throw the ball. They were getting after it. But this is just not a Penn State offense that was equipped to handle a very good defense. And it's scoring 34 points per game in Big Ten play, held to 12 in this one. Not that this is what their offense is. It's not a very good offense. And Drew Aller's inaccuracy, the inability to run, like this is a flawed offense, and a flawed offense is not going to get it done against a very good defense.
And this is a Penn State offense that scored 31 against Iowa, and Iowa's a real good defense. But there's an asterisk there where they kept getting short fields, and if you make them drive, trying to drive the length of the field without being able to hit a big play, that's a big ask against a good defense. And you sort of get the sense they might run into some of these same issues against Michigan. And the path to victory for Penn State against Michigan is and then some Beaver Stadium magic happens, which has happened from time to time, and Michigan has struggled to win there at times. But I would guess, coming off of this game, if Michigan thumps Michigan State the way that you would sort of expect them to, I would think Michigan probably goes in there as at least a slight favorite, right?
Yeah, and if Michigan does go in and thump Michigan State, don't you think that disproves all of the sign stealing conversation just right away? Just told you we don't steal signs. Look how badly we won without stealing them this time.
I find it all funny. That's my editorial position. Do we want to take a look at a couple of the stats from the game?
Sure. We
had some graphics out. So let's just run through these graphics, because this is notable. There's some notable numbers on here. Total yards. My thoughts on total yards, but 49 rushing yards for Penn State, 191 passing yards, and what did you say, 73 of them or something that was on the last drive? 49 rushing yards and 120 something passing yards going into that last drive before you go into prevent. Ohio State did not play a perfectly clean game, but they didn't kill themselves with penalties. Penn State played a much cleaner game than they have in the past. Like, penalties have been a big bugaboo for Penn State this year, and they played a relatively clean game.
Although the ones they got sure hurt.
They did. They made the best. They made the most of them. That's for sure.
They got their money's worth.
Yeah, and Penn State did not get into the red zone until there were 30 seconds left in the game. Boy, that's one of the most impressive stats about Michigan is no one has gotten to an end goal situation again against them this year. That was Ohio State doing that to what was supposed to be the best offense they played maybe all season, at least before that Michigan game. So that's a big time game for that defense.
Seeing that 4 or 5 in the red zone for Ohio State, that's the first time anybody has been stopped in the red zone against Penn State this year. They're now opponents are now 11 of 12. Once they get into the red zone, they score almost every time.
All right. So do we want to get to a few of our questions? Oh, here we go. We got a quarterback battle graphic we need to get to. McCord, 22 of 35, 286 and a touchdown. That's, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's not, he had, you mentioned he was kind of streaky at times, but when he was on, he was on.
Yeah. And the balls were there and showed a good arm, good accurate arm, and giving his receivers in the second half opportunities to catch the ball. He at this point, it's just weird. I guess it's a new quarterback thing. It's you're growing into being a starter, but the ups and downs, but yet you have confidence that at some point, like I said, the ups are going to stay there, and then he's going to play at a certain level, and he's going to get the job done.
And, I think on the Drew Aller side of that, what number jumps out to me more than anything else?
18 of 42?
The 42 in particular. 42 throws for a young quarterback who has not been, I think the level of confidence in him right now among the Penn State coaching staff, and this is not something they said, but I don't know that they trust him to throw the ball downfield, and I don't know that he trusts himself to throw the ball downfield. Somewhere along the line, the trust is just not there, and the receivers are not really getting open, so there's not really a whole lot of stuff to be doing downfield. So if you're going to do 42 passes, if you're throwing 42 passes because you can't run the ball and you can't throw the ball downfield, that is just That's not going to work.
Well, and 12 of those came on the final drive.
Yeah,
but still, the inaccuracy when he was throwing downfield, the ball was some of those passes down the sideline were like 6-7 yards out of bounds, like legit. Bring up the Joe Bauserman passing chart type of stuff, Nebraska 2011, not literally, but there's some growth there that has to happen, and the confidence. Obviously his receivers could get better and they could help him out, but I don't know at this point how well he would be hitting them, especially under pressure. Because once Ohio State started getting pressure, the more Drew Aller felt pressure, even if it wasn't there, or it would be a little bit of pressure, and he'd be feeling more of it than was actually there.
Yeah. All right. So we have a huge backlog of questions that I do want to get to. So Kevin, want to punch those up? All right. Yeah. FDR is great. 75-yard punt from Jesse Burka was a momentum killer for Penn State.
That was tremendous. That was Andy Groom levels of bailing out, and back to the Big Ten football 2002 stuff. That was a tremendous punt. Terrible decision by the punt returner to let that one go. And I'm not sure if that's the guy that was doing it last week who returned 2 punts. The quarterback returned 2 punts for touchdowns last week. Kind of a new punt returner, and maybe that's one of those mistakes the inexperience brings about, but to let that go and then it just rolls and rolls and rolls. He had another one earlier that went out of bounds that would have rolled another 15 yards, 20 yards if it hadn't been out of bounds.
Yeah, and James Franklin was asked about that, I think, later on. I don't think that was part of the clip we played earlier, but he was asked, did you ask him, like, hey, why'd you let that go? And he basically said, like, no, I think he knew he didn't do the right thing, so it didn't feel like that was something a conversation I needed to have in that moment. Market X says, I love James Franklin like I loved Brady Hoke. Let's keep him there as long as possible. Penn State right now is in a great spot for Ohio State because they have not been able to get over the hump, but they're also good enough that it's a quality win every year. It's a great line item on the resume every single year. And every time, it feels like when they're in Columbus, it feels like Ohio State should win. And they've been close games in Columbus, but when you go to Penn State, that, especially when it's a night game, that's that feels dicey. And Ohio State last year, it was not a night game. It was a big noon game. 2 years before that, it was 2020, and there was no one there. So it was like, it was a night game, but it wasn't the whiteout. So they haven't really had to play the whiteout game since 2018. So they've won one whiteout game in a row.
It's a very symbiotic relationship, but I'm not sure what Penn State gets out of it. Ohio State gets, like you said, all of the positives, and Penn State gets all of the negatives. And you joined the Big Ten voluntarily.
Todd Mann says, can someone explain to me why Franklin went for 2? Did he have an alternate spread bet? Yeah, Tony and I were talking about this before we started. And, James Franklin has this reputation for doing weird stuff, especially in the closing minutes of games. And this was definitely an unorthodox move. The thinking is if you're going to go for 2, and you're going to go for 2, if you do it on the first one, you got to recover an onside kick anyway. So it's not like Ohio State's game. If Ohio State has another possession, the game's over. So you've got to get it. So this way you give yourself 2 chances to get a 2-point conversion and get to overtime. And if you make it on the first time, then all you got to do is kick a PAT and you win the game. So hopefully, did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So you basically you give yourself 2 chances to make a 2-pointer and get yourself to overtime. But if you do it the first time, all you got to do is kick a PAT. I think I just said literally the same words twice, but that's because that's the explanation, Tony.
No, and it's atypical. It goes against tradition, and I don't think it's necessary, but I do understand the reasoning why. If you get it once, then you're ahead of the game. So you're taking 2 opportunities, but the thing is, you have to make at least one of them.
Right, and it's I think 2-point conversions are generally considered roughly a 50-50 proposition, give or take.
Sounds like bad odds. Honestly.
Yeah,
if you have to make one of those.
Onside kicks are much worse.
Yeah, onside. You're playing. You're playing a 5. You're an 8-2 offsuit at that point. And it's like, well, I've got to push all in. So
because if you need one of 2, and it's a 50-50, each one is 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're hurting your odds.
Well, you've got if do we want to turn this
No,
into a
we
math
don't.
show? I'm happy to turn this into a
no.
math show. If you are 50-50 to make the first one, you have a 50% chance of making, right?
Mhm.
And then you have a 50% chance to make the second one. So the odds of you making at least one are 75%, because it's 50-50 on the first one, and then if you miss it, you still are 50-50 on the next one. So you're like 75% to make one of them. This is like we're getting into like the Monty Hall problem kind of like math, and I'm sure we're losing people right now. So
if you are bound and determined to do it, I do it the second time.
Yeah, and that's certainly the traditional way to approach it. And it was one of those things where I think, based on James Franklin's history, the immediate reaction from everyone was LOL James Franklin, which I get it. And believe me, I had a moment where I was like, what on earth is he doing? And then I thought through it. I was like, okay, like I get the thinking
I think my concern would be you do it the first time, you don't get it, and you do it the second time and you don't get it, and you lose because you didn't get it the first time. And so it's like losing that way would suck. And so it's like I would choose not to lose that way. I would choose, if I'm gonna win it lose a different way. But that's basically my motto in life: lose a different way, be special.
They've found a lot of different ways to lose over the years.
And the difference in this one, I don't think James Franklin didn't blow it at any point.
No, I didn't think there was anything really egregious at any point. I mean, the decision, the decision to go for, there were Kevin said stopping running. There was a point where Penn State had a 20-yard run and then something else, and then immediately went pass, and had to punt. And it was like, boy, the thing that you're doing that they can't stop, you're allowed to keep doing it. You don't run out of running plays. You can keep doing it until they stop it. That is a thing you can do. Ohio State had a couple moments like that at various times.
The first quarter with Nick Singleton's first carry goes for 20.
Yeah.
Second carry goes for 16. And then immediately Drew Aller gets sacked and then throws into completion. And then it's like 3rd and 13. So they just run the ball for the to save the field goal there.
Yeah. Rusty Jesse says, I thought we should have went for it when we missed the last field goal. Defense is good. I thought Penn State was going to win the league this year. Now they have to worry about Maryland. So the decision where they went for it there, I believe that was the field goal. I believe that was the field goal that gave them a 2-score lead. So that was the field goal that made it 13 to 6. I think that was the one that made it 13-6. So at that point, you want to give yourself a touchdown lead, because then Penn State has to score a touchdown and go for 2 if you're going to lose. If you're in that 4-point range, there were people who thought that going for it on 4th and goal at the 2 on the previous drive, like you should have taken the points, and that's one of those things where that's sort of your mileage may vary, and I understand the thought there. I don't mind being aggressive in that, in that spot, because then if you don't get it, you pin them deep. If it's 4th and goal at the 2 and you don't get it, they start on the 2. So, and that was, I think, the drive where they didn't get anything, but then they had the punt. I believe I've got my order of events correct there. But I think when you're in a spot where your defense is playing well, you probably kick the field goal. I don't remember what the down and distance was on that when they kicked that field goal.
He's talking about the one they missed, where it's 4th and 4 from the 27 with 2:41
okay.
left.
Yeah.
So
okay.
you go for it.
Yeah.
You keep the ball.
Yeah.
Basically, you don't give Penn State the ball back at all.
Mhm. Yeah.
4th and 4. I would have been. I was a little surprised they were kicking a field goal, because you're talking 44 yards or whatever. My thought was, this is an opportunity to send Jaden Fielding out there. It started to rain, so it's not perfect conditions. Send him out there to get some experience, more experience in kicking a ball in a big game, without the kind of pressure like, oh, you need to make this. Because remember, it happened. How did last season end? With a big kick that needed to be made.
Anyway, so
back to math.
Now you're Bobby Bad Vibes. I like it. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong field goal, but yeah. So in that case, it's 20-6. So by kicking that field goal, you make it 23-6. You take it from a 2-score game to a 3-score game. That's that. And 4th and 4, and it's on the 27. You don't have benefit of pinning them deep if you don't make it. It's 4th and 4. It's not 4th and 1. Taking it from 2-score game to a 3-score game. All of those things sort of point to
Although if this had been a real Big Ten game, they could have punted.
He punted
from the 27.
He punted from the plus 38. He's B1G enough as it is.
Maybe too much.
Next one, the Ohio State Lincoln Keenholz is one snap away from playing. I mean, we haven't really seen. We haven't seen either of the backups yet. My assumption is this is why you brought in Tristan Gebbia.
Yeah, I don't think you're one snap away from seeing Lincoln Keenholz. You're one snap from seeing Tristan Gebbia. Yeah, because Tristan Gebbia at least has starting experience, has played Power 5, big time college football. So he would be that guy. Lincoln Keenholz spending so much of his time with the scout team, so I don't know how prepared he even is at this point. My question is, and I don't think this is going to happen, depending on how long Devin Brown is out. If you like that red zone package, you like that inside the 5-yard line, Lincoln Keenholz can run the ball. Now what he is not 6'3", 220 pounds like Devin Brown. He's like 6'2", 6'3", 195, 205 pounds. So he's not going to get that push. So I think that package might be shelved for a while. They didn't seem too concerned about Devin Brown's situation in terms of the ankle, but they will be forthcoming with the injury situation with a big game coming up on the road at Wisconsin, Halloween weekend. I'm sure he will tell us which tendon it is, which he probably Brian, it looked like the right ankle. No, it was left ankle. Just some subterfuge in there as well, just to keep us guessing.
Left elbow injury.
Yes.
It's gonna be like hockey. The injury report's just gonna say lower body injury. I mean, I think the thing, no matter how serious it is, if your whole thing is you're coming in short yardage where you got to be able to get a real good push and you've got to be fast and you got to be able to cut and make quick changes of direction, none of that, assuming this was some kind of an ankle sprain, none of that is like, oh yeah, no, you want to try it out there at like 65% and do that. I think you're not going to see that package play for a while.
Yeah, I believe the sideline report was sprained ankle. Day said he got rolled up. The ankle got rolled up, so it seems to be confirmation. But just the lack of dour tone around it makes me think it's not super bad. He will be back. So
Vin Rudy says Penn State will continue to have nightmares of JT Tuimoloau. I wasn't sure if it was a crucial crunch time play, and then JT Tuimoloau got a sack, and I was like, oh, okay, well this must be a crucial moment if JT Tuimoloau is doing his thing.
You don't need to watch the scoreboard; just watch the defensive end, and also maybe Penn State should choose to block him every time, because when they don't block him, he ends up making a play. And it's just a suggestion for, well, not next year.
Nick Super Chat says Michigan is guilty no matter what. Time to fire Harbaugh. Vacate all wins since 2021. 10-year bowl ban. Clean house of the athletic department. Eliminate 50% of scholarships. The program must end.
I mean, that's a little harsh. 50% of the scholarships.
I think Nick must be a Michigan fan. I don't know. That's pretty much a slap on the wrist, don't you think?
I do know that if you want to sell T-shirts that say before the game saying Ryan Day is 1-0 against Michigan, you might.
You can get that at the Buckeye Huddle fan shop.
Yeah, like that.
The design right now.
Yeah, as soon as we get permission from Ryan Day to use his name and likeness,
I'm sure that will be extremely forthcoming. Every bit as forthcoming as the injury information we were just talking about. Yeah, we'll see. We're going to end up having more conversations about this Michigan
is that
thing,
right?
We Tony and I did a show on Friday afternoon, just kind of wanted to let a day go by and let some of the news cycle sort itself out. And then, of course, we put that out. And then immediately, as soon as that gets out, then they suspend the guy. And so, we'll have another update on that. But if you want to hear our thoughts on that, you can listen to that show. That's in the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast feed or on youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle.
Yeah, it's the show that is longer than all of the other Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning shows there.
All right, so now we're gonna go through a few of our pictures before we wrap the game up. This is Jack Sawyer. Drew actually got the ball out already at this point, but Jack Sawyer hit him, and this is one where it looked weird. Like he hit him, and then I have a picture a couple after this that I didn't send in, but it looks like he's doing something from the Ministry of Silly Walks, where he just looked awkward. It was like a little bit like when Christian Hackenberg that walk-off sack at the end of that game in 2014. 14, right? 14. So, and there's Jack Sawyer before. Here's JT Tuimoloau out. JT Tuimoloau had 1 sack, 1 tackle all game. It was like 1 pass breakup, 1 sack. But man, oh man, he was in there. He was in there all day. He was keeping. I mean, Drew Aller did not have a real good time in the pocket. And then this was, I believe, the 4th down stop. Ty Hamilton and Tommy Eichenberg wrapping up the running back. That was I think the 4th down. It was 4th and short. And then this was at the end. This is Kenyatta Jackson. Kenyatta Jackson, man, they've got something there. It feels, and they're still using him in much more in obvious pass rush situations. But man, he is doing some work in those obvious pass rush situations. I think between Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry, if you lose JT Tuimoloau and or Jack Sawyer next year, there's Kenyatta Jackson celebrating that sack. He seemed happy. That is my hashtag analysis on that one. If you lose JT Tuimoloau and or Jack Sawyer after this year, it feels like you got 2 pretty good defensive ends coming back in Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson.
Last week, Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, for the 3rd time in their careers, each had a sack in a game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to assume this is the first time in Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson's career that they've had a sack in the same game.
Oh, interesting. This one was one where they were he was trying to force it into Marvin Harrison, and I think that's Abdul Carter, number 11, sliding in underneath and breaking it up. Yes, not quite. This is the ball going the other way, but the flag was out. Like, I think there was some question like, did the flag come out real late or something like that? That flag was out. This was the defensive holding against that. The defensive back was holding Marvin Harrison. That ended up with the scoop and score. But I mean, the flag's out, Marvin Harrison's pointing, and the ball's not that far downfield.
Like, the great thing about this is Marvin is just standing there pointing first down while the ball is 60 yards away. All of the Penn State people are going crazy and running down. He's like,
well, this is 2 weeks in a row that we've had a long touchdown that there was like a huge percentage of the people had no idea was not going to count, because last week it was Ohio State. There was one that got called back, I think. There's one at Purdue. I don't know. It didn't happen in the box score, so it doesn't matter who it was. But there was one that there was like a long play and it didn't end up counting. And there's Marvin Harrison. This is the game, or I guess the game-winning touchdown, the final touchdown. There's Marvin.
Nice block from
Carnell Tate there. Yeah, right at the goal line. And there's Marv and Mayan Williams celebrating that Marvin Harrison can get up in the air a little bit.
Yeah, I believe 52-inch vertical.
And there's Mayan Williams. I mean, and I look at that picture and it's like, boy, that's a pretty well blocked play, because he's, you got your offensive line on the right hand side, you've got Donovan Jackson taking care of the guy behind him, you got Cade Stover coming out front. I mean, that was, and I don't think that one went for an enormous game, but I think that was a 6-8 yard game.
Seeing this one reminded me of when Chop Robinson got hurt. The play before that, he apparently got hurt and was asking to come out, and they kept him in there. And the very next play is Matt Jones comes pulling and just smashes him. Like the very last kind of play you want to see when you're already hurting. Here comes Matt Jones. Yeah.
And this one, I just like this one. This is Cade Stover getting tackled, but I really liked right behind Cade Stover's helmet. That's Manny Diaz, the defensive coordinator for Penn State. He is into the game, man. He is. Mm-hmm. And you know what? His defense played pretty well too. His defense did their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, you can only do so much against the Ohio State wide receivers or Marvin.
Yeah, yeah. And there's Mayan Williams. I think this ended up being the guy who tackled him, like grabbing his shoe and just kind of like pulling him off bounds. I always find it so interesting to look at those, because how guys get tackled, it's just a lot of times it's just like a swipe of the foot, and that's enough to just knock you off balance, just enough that you go down.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. There's Orlando Pace and his family. The guy on the right there is Landon Pace. He is a 2025 tight end. Orlando's been around the program quite a bit.
Like they're posing
recently.
for you, Tom.
Does look like that.
I didn't say that. Do we have any other questions? Are we? We're good. So,
okay.
All right then. I guess that will wrap it up. I want to remind everybody to check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Now's a good time to become a member. As we said, we're going to have a ton of stuff from the recruiting weekend, a massive recruiting weekend. I'm interested to hear what the 5-star wide receiver Jamie French has to say. Committed to Alabama here on his own dime, checking things out. So we'll see what happens there. As you can find us at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle as you are right now. If you're watching this, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe if you have not yet, hit the bell to be notified. And if you are catching this on a podcast later in the day, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating and review if you would like. So that will do it from here for me, for Tom, for Kevin. Thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you guys later.